Hello and welcome to Melee's Turn Wheel, the series that takes a retroactive look at the Fire Emblem series chapter by chapter. I'm your host, Main Melee Kirby, and today we're taking it back to chapters 14, 14X, and 15 of Fire Emblem Thracia 776. Today is a very special day because, for the first time, I am actually joined by another human being. Usually I do these alone, but I decided to invite a buddy of mine on, and we're taking this one together, or at least part of it. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yo, I'm Admiral Spyke. I'm a friend of Melee's, and we've been friends for a while in online Fire Emblem spheres. I've been around on Reddit and in Discords and stuff, and really happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy to have you. So I think that you in particular are going to be a fun person to have on a Thracia episode because our opinions on Thracia are pretty different. I'm not a big fan, as I've made clear in episodes in the past. But you're a fan, if that's correct.
Yeah, it's my favorite game in the series. Though I will say it's more for the story than for the gameplay. But the gameplay, I think, is still it's just interesting enough for me to put up with it over everything else in the series.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that this episode, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but I think that this episode is going to be interesting because we're talking about chapter 14, which is actually one of my favorite chapters in the game. It's one that I genuinely really like. So this is an episode where our opinions are probably going to align more than they would for most others. I was talking earlier. I was in voice chat with a couple other guys, and I was saying earlier how I think it would have been really fun to have you on for the Manster episode because I went in on those maps. I hate those maps, so I think it would have been fun to hear your counterpoints for those.
I hate some of those maps. Some of them are genuinely just not very good and do not have many redeeming qualities. Four, I think, is interesting, but it fails at being good. It takes too long, and you have to do a lot of meandering and menial stuff. 4X goes without saying. Mm-hmm. I will defend 5 for being a fantastic gameplay story integration set piece, even though the actual gameplay of it is effectively FE6 Chapter 8, but worse. And then Chapter 6, I just think is just cool. I really thought it was a good escape chapter, escaping through a town, trying to snag as much loot as possible without getting chased by Galzus and the army. I thought it made for a really fun escape. And then Chapter 7 is just okay, but I don't like it that much one way or the other.
All right. Well, yeah. So your opinion actually on them isn't that much different than mine. I would probably a couple things here and there, but for the most part, I think we actually agree on those quite a lot. But that's interesting. But yes. So today, as I said, we're talking about 14, 14X, and 15. You are only joining. I mean, you can join for as much as you want, but I believe you were only interested in joining for the discussion of Chapter 14. Is that correct?
I mean, I can stick around for all 3 maps, but 14 is definitely the most interesting and has far more going for it than the other 2. So
yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, so we can make that, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. Think it over, and we'll see how you're feeling when we get there. But before we get into any of our maps for today, I do want to quickly do the question of the episode because I haven't been doing them for the past couple because I recorded these past 3 episodes in bulk, and I'm going to be releasing them all at once. So it didn't make any sense to do questions for those past couple of episodes. So this is going to be the first one in a while. But the question that I asked last time, I believe I should have probably looked it up, but it was like, what ROM hacks have you played, and what ones did you like? Which ones did you not like? I didn't get a ton of response for that, but I think mostly people kind of just chimed in with like The Last Promise was a very common one. I saw one guy say he hadn't played, but he had seen a lot of Super Thracia. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, Spike.
Oh no, Super Thracia is basically a Kaizo ROM hack of FE5. It features a bunch of meme things. The Ghost of Arden chases you around as an unkillable 99 stat boss enemy. The Black Knight from Tellius is there for some reason. Ishtar and Reinhardt are both playable, I believe. I think Julius is a hidden bonus character. there's a bunch of new stuff added in, and all of the maps are extremely toxic and unfun, and you should never play it.
That sounds like a Kaizo ROM hack, all right. I definitely think it sounds like a fun game to watch someone else play. I don't think I would want to play it personally, but who knows.
All we can do is pray that Excelblum never gets told about it, or he will milk it for the rest of his life.
Excelblum playing Super Thracia sounds like the best thing I've ever heard in my life, to be honest.
He wouldn't even need to get his viewers to kill off his units. He would have enough trouble keeping them alive trying to play completely honest.
True.
He'd have to pay his viewers to try to actively keep his units alive and not play sacrificial. That would be a good flip.
Yeah, honestly.
But if I can chime in with a ROM hack I have my own experience with that is not The Last Promise, as legendary as that ROM hack is. Project Ember is an FE6 like overhaul rebalance.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting case because I think it's better than most other ROM hacks of its type, of the kind that just pick a GBA game and we're like, let's just make it more based, and then they make it terrible. Mm-hmm. Project Ember is, I think, the big problem it has is actually just a less extreme version of the others, where it's very overindulgent, but it makes it more fun in its indulgence, so it breaks the balance and kind of screws with a lot of the game. A lot of classes are buffed. There's alt promos, like they add in like Great Knight and Mage Knight and stuff. Roy promotes into a Night Lord, Eliwood's class. So you basically have Sigurd instead of Roy as your Lord, which is because he promotes with a Knight Crest. So you can have Roy promote with the first Knight Crest in like the first few chapters.
Yes, so it also comes with an alternate promotions patch, which was a lot of fun because I used that. I played with that when I played it, and it makes Roy a Wyvern Lord, which is incredibly broken. But yeah, I just wanted to chime in with that. Continue. What were you saying?
Just that it adds perf weapons to large sections of the cast.
Yeah.
That are very unbalanced, and bows have 3 range, which makes archers extremely powerful as player and enemy units, and makes maps that were designed with thin tunnels that archers are meant to stand on either end of not work. Yes,
that was the big problem that I had when I played it. I think that a lot of rebalance hacks kind of they struggle with what to do with archers because archers are just so bad in the GBA games, and I think that it's hard, right? Because I think they're just so inherently flawed by design that unless you make like big systemic changes that have long-reaching implications, you're just not going to get anywhere, right? I think your best bet is probably to just make them really strong or just make them all on horseback. It's kind of cheap. It feels kind of like a lazy answer, but it's the only way that I can think of to buff archers in GBA games without just like breaking the game.
Yeah, the only thing you can really do is make bows have really high might, but then that makes enemy archers very annoying because they just...
But yeah, so Project Ember is a fun one. I actually haven't beaten any Fire Emblem ROM hacks, which is weird since I love this series so much. I've played like every main series games like 4 times.
Just aren't really many. TLP is basically the only really like major like new game ROM hack that you can play. A lot of the other ones, like Staff of Ages, I think is like indefinitely delayed for completion.
I did play Staff of Ages a few years back when it was like still in more active development, and I really liked it. I think that was on track to be like one of the best ones, but I mean a lot of them are on track to be one of the best ones, if not the best, and then they get boxed forever. So
I was a big fan of Midnight Sun. It was an older one that featured the Lord was a dark mage, and the secondary lord was a pre-promote knight with a sword that could tear portals in reality to stab people at long range.
Fuck, that sounds awesome.
And it was like it was like a 8 to 10 chapter ROM hack. It was not very long, but it got shelved for a very long time. The developer, Alfred Kamen, could not keep working on it for a long time, but I believe a year or 2 ago, he came back out of nowhere and announced that he was actually making a standalone game based on that ROM hack.
Whoa.
That is coming out, I think, soon, actually, on Switch. It's called, like, Midnight Sun something or other.
Wow, that's
But
awesome.
it's not an FE game anymore. It's its own thing. It's more of a VN now. But it's really cool to have followed that project back in its infancy and seen it grow into what it is now.
That's really cool, yeah, because I have heard of Midnight Sun. That was like one of the back, in the early, like the mid 2000 teens, when I was getting into the series for the first time. Those were like the two big ones, were Last Promise and Midnight Sun as like the ones that people always talked about. And they were correct me if I'm wrong. Midnight Sun was like, it was short, but it was finished. Is that correct, or was it always unfinished?
It was like he finished effectively. There was a closed section of the story arc.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a big climactic event that ended, and everything that was going on at the moment had basically been resolved.
Okay.
But there was like going to be a continuation, but there wasn't like a huge cliffhanger. Just there was gonna be an arc 2 that never happened, and now there's a new story happening based on everything that never happened and did happen.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's interesting still. And then there's a bunch of ones that are really cool but not finished. There's one that Gast. I think he's still pretty popular, but he was like really big for a while. He was working on one. I think it's called Bloodlines. I don't know how far along he is with that, but it seems cool. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot out there. There was one that people were talking about and playing more recently. I don't remember what it was called.
It's called the Midnight Sun follow-up. It's called Path of the Midnight Sun.
Oh. Okay.
And it comes out next month.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I gotta check that out. I had no idea. Sun God's Wrath. That's what it's called. Sun God's Wrath. Have you ever heard of it?
Vaguely, maybe once, but I don't remember.
Me neither. I know absolutely nothing about it. I know it came out kind of recently, I think. And some
cool.
YouTubers have been playing it, so I gotta check that out. I don't know if it's finished or not. His playlist on it is 33 episodes, which seems pretty hefty, so it's probably at least like a decent length hack. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I got for ROM hacks. I never really followed up with what you said about Project Ember, but I liked Project Ember a lot. I never finished it. I wish I had.
Yeah, I think that it being fun and like FE6 at its core is a game that is designed around inconvenience and frustration, basically. So all of that being just smashed and torn to pieces, and every character is OP, and Wendy is like top 5 units in the game, and Lelina has an OP unique class, and Roy is Sigurd too. And Fur has a unique sprite, and it does like edgy, like green Trails of Cold Steel katana animations. It's like okay, I'm with it. It's just as an actual like tactical game experience. It's kind of just big numbers and hassly stuff.
You kind of hit the nail on the head where I think overindulgence is a big thing, and also just like this idea of a lot of ROM hacks, a lot of balance hacks try to fix quote unquote things that aren't broken. Like a lot of perceived flaws in the GBA games are there by design. I think FE6 especially is like designed to be kind of weird and wonky in a lot of ways, and to be challenging. Whether that's always done in well designed fair ways, I think is up for debate. Chapter 14 exists, which is kind of a problem, but other than that, I think it's a solving problems that aren't there, basically, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and in regards to FE6 especially, it's the only FE game where your lord is really designed as a king chess piece rather than as a queen or as like a rook or bishop, so to speak.
No,
Roy is your win objective and is essential, and you need to use him to win the game. But he is not a powerhouse, and he needs to be escorted by the queen and by your other powerful chess pieces, so to speak.
A great analogy, which, considering it is so frequently referred to as anime chess.
I'm sure I've heard that somewhere else. I don't think I came up with that, but it just came to mind the other day when someone else was talking about FE6. I think I was in a YouTuber posted a meme of Geese getting crit in a Project Ember map, and I was like, it's great that Geese has Fuji now, but the game is overindulgent.
Yeah,
I made that comment there as well.
All right, yeah. So yeah, thanks for the people who left replies, and thank you for engaging with that with me, Spike. So for next episode, what I want to hear from you guys, and we can talk a little bit about this as well, Spike, if you feel up for it.
Oh yeah, we can give it a bit in case we want to move on to the mount
For sure.
soon.
Yeah. The next thing that I want to ask you guys. So in the last episode, I did chapter 12X, and I talked a little bit about how the experience of that map is so different, depending on whether you use warp or not. And I think that I kind of brought up, like, if a map is really fun, or at least like tolerable if you do use warp, but it's really terrible if you don't use warp, or at least in my opinion. How should that factor into like how I rank the map, how I talk about the map, to what extent should I give that kind of the attention? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Interesting. I see what you mean. Yeah, I think I have a map in mind to bring up. Wooden Cavalry from Shadow Dragon.
Oh, that's a huge one, yeah.
The Ballista map. Terrible map to play straight. Terrible map to tackle. If you're doing full recruitment, like in my case, I was doing a draft of FE11, and I had to do full recruitment because I do full recruitment drafts for extra challenge. And recruiting Astrum on that map was such a nightmare. It was like I had to reset so many times, and I was slamming that save state button. I tell you what. But if I had been able to just press A like 3 times, select a tile on the map, press A again, and teleport and win, that would have been great.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. But not everyone is gonna play that way, right? And I think the fact like, especially, I think FE5 is a little bit of a weird example, because I think FE5 definitely Kaga is, I think you could argue he definitely designed some of these maps around warp, but I don't know if I would say the same thing about FE11 or FE12. I don't know if I would say that these maps are designed around warp, or like FE6 Chapter 14 X.
I think that in the case of DSFE, they did know, but I think they underestimated it, because I think that they knew that warp was a very strong tool when they made it like a 7-use staff or whatever. But they gave you too many warps, and they gave you too many uses. And so in FE12, they just gut it. They either take it out or they make it less accessible on lower difficulties. So they definitely knew how strong warp was because of what they did to it in FE12. But they may have just not known it really.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. I think you raise a good point. So yeah, what I've kind of settled on, and I think what I'm probably going to do going forward, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and the thoughts of the others, is I'm probably, I think it's just fair to take both into consideration, right? Because some people are going to play it straight, some people are going to warp skip it. Both of those experiences are valid. I can't just like weigh one like more heavily over the other. That's what I'm thinking. But I'm curious to see, because I think because I'm not, I've mentioned this before, I think, but I'm not warp skipping any of the maps.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's a little anticlimactic to say, yeah, I warped Lara to the end of the map, talked to Pan, and then I just walked in a straight line for 10 turns. That's not really getting a clear impression of the map, in my opinion, or the same with like Reinhardt's map later on in the game. I've never played that map in a normal way.
Yeah, there are a few interesting ways to play that map. Charm stacking is a legitimate strategy. Like Charm and Leadership star stack is the most reliable way I've seen to play it normally. Leif with the Kingmaker, Nana, and then have like actually recruit Xavier, and then bring him and Glade and everybody else that have Leadership stars. Promo the people that get Leadership stars on promo, like Finn, I think gets one on promo. And just pile on as many of those as you can, and bring a bunch of Pure Waters, and then Berserk Reinhardt and let him go ham. Yeah,
no, and that to me that just seems so much more fun than I warped Asvel to the end and killed Reinhardt, and then warped Leif to the end and won. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I played that map straight on my first go, and it was a real trial. I'll tell you what. It's not a map that is very intuitive. It's a really long slog. There's a lot of obstacles, and the bridge coming out behind you when you play it straight, because that is a thing. at the midpoint of the map, after you cross the bridge, they throw the bridge out behind you and lock you on the other side with Reinhardt and his squad of mage knights.
Oh Christ.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that you'll never know happens because you warp skip the map. Because why would you fight this map normally? Are you kidding me?
Yes. Exactly. That's where I'm at. So I'm excited to see, because that's exactly it. Because if I was talking about this like in the podcast and I warp skipped it and I didn't know about that, I just learned about that now, I wouldn't have mentioned it. And I feel like that's not giving an accurate portrayal of what that map is like. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll think on it, and I'm curious, if anyone has any opinions about it, you can tweet your answers at iMainMeleeKirby or email at turnwheelpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what you guys think. All right, so with all that out of the way, I think we can go ahead and start talking about our chapters, starting with Chapter 14 on...
Oh boy, this is a real whammy.
Chapter opens up with a scene of Dean and Ada. Ada, we're going to have to get that out of the way.
I think Ada.
What?
Pretty sure it's Ada.
Ada, okay. Dean and Ada, or Ada, Fire Emblem names.jpg. Dean and Ada are talking to Lenoan, and they kind of get into like what their relationship with her is. Dane, I gotta bring up the script. I'm pretty sure Dean has known her since they were kids or something like that.
Yeah, they're a long time. They've known each other for a very long time. I'm pretty sure it's why Arion trusts Dean with Lenoan.
Yes. Because
and that ends up being more of a thing later. The whole Dean Arios. Fuck. I almost said it and then caught myself and then said it on accident. The man has poisoned my brain. Arion kind of knows that him and Lenoan aren't going to work out, and that's kind of, I think he deliberately pushes Dean towards her in his place.
Okay.
That's a whole other thing. That Arion's just having a bad time.
Yeah, Arion is having a bad time in FE4 too.
Yeah, well, yeah, just in the whole Yggdrasil situation in general.
Yes, Arion gets a bad lot. But yeah, she says that Dean has been watching over me since I was very young. And then she brings some parallels to the Crusader Dane, the legendary Draco Knight, like one of the 12 Crusaders. I don't know what he's like. I don't in terms of like what the connection is between him and Dean. I assume that they're both kind of like headstrong.
I think they're both just cool Draco Knights.
Yeah, I mean that's probably it. I had a little headcanon back when I did FE4 about because there's no way to check Holy Blood in this. I remember thinking, and it being kind of implied as throughout the game, that people who are part of the bloodline of a Crusader and like have Holy Blood tend to take on similar personality traits or similar demeanors and things like that, like the Sed bloodline, Lewin and Sed and all those guys. They always seem to have like common themes of like going out into the world and helping people despite like maybe that not being the best thing for them.
They become like wind-swept people in a sense.
Yeah,
like literally pulled up by the winds of Forseti.
Yes, exactly. There was some talk of Arvis having the heart of the Crusader Vala or something like that, like being very similar in that sense, which is, part of that's just like typical narrative tropes of like, people being similar to their ancestors. That's not like a Fire Emblem specific thing, but I think it could make sense. And I think part of me wonders if Dean maybe has a little Dane holy blood in him.
And he starts holding the Dane scroll. So it's definitely with all three of those things, it would make sense for him to have some sort of like dormant holy blood in him for him to take after Dane in such a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
After the talk with the three Taran people.
Well, hold on, because there's more to this. There's like a lot here that I
yeah, they talk for a while. You're right. There is a lot to go over story wise.
Yes. So she says that after I wrote in my notes, Dean saved Lenoan, but I could not for the life of me remember what the fuck I was talking about. So after her father died,
Oh yes, I remember
who stepped in and protected her from the Empire. She was kept prisoner in her own home for 2 years, and then Dean helped her out. And then Arion's been secretly helping Tahra the whole time. That's something that comes up here. Arion, if you don't remember, is Altena's brother, quote unquote, from Thracia, Trevant's son, and the guy who wields Gungnir in the FE4. And I don't know, I don't think this was mentioned earlier. He and Lenoan are betrothed.
Yes, they are fiancés.
Okay, that's interesting. I legitimately did not remember that about this game.
Yeah, it's a whole it's like an arranged marriage subplot, which is why Dean is sent to protect Lenoan by Arion, and then when Arion can't be there for her, he sends Dean, who he knows also secretly harbors affection for her, in his stead, because it's an arranged marriage, and he knows that she doesn't really love him. Mm-hmm. She did it to protect Tahra and for her own like interests. So he would rather her be with someone that she has mutual affection with.
Well, that's very nice. And they kind of have like a romance subplot over the course of the game, right? Dean and Lenoan, or is it just kind of like hinted at?
There's a couple. I think they have like one or two more scenes before the end of the game, but it's mostly in their endings, I think. But that's about it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so there's a lot of backstory here. This is it, right? Like Tahra has been. I went back and listened to a couple older episodes, and Tahra has been built up since it's been built up since literally the opening cutscene of the game. They mention it, and then it's like their goal has been reaching Tahra since Chapter 2X when they meet Safi. So this is been a long time coming, and they're finally here. So I think that this is kind of where we get a lot of the information dumped. And some backstory for Lenoan and Tahra as a city, and it's really interesting. I like it. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to finally get some more direct info on the place we've been waiting to see for so long.
And then after this cutscene, actually, we just get tossed right into the map. There's no chime in from Leif. I think the bosses have like a conversation, but it's very boring. It's just them.
It's military talk.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the map starts, and we're immediately given two new characters that we got to talk about. The first, we just talked about them. They're Ada and Dean. As characters, we'll just Ada and is not a very. I don't remember Ada being particularly interesting.
Yeah, she doesn't really do all that much. She's like a little bit headstrong. She's like, I want to prove myself to my brother. Yeah, sort of character.
She looks up to her brother a lot. That's a big thing. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, she's kind of just like whatever. Dean is, we already talked about a lot of his character, and I would say like probably the majority of his character for the whole game comes from that cutscene we just talked about. He has a lot of similarities to Dane. He helped Lenoan. He has like a romantic subplot with Lenoan over the course of the game. A lot of the stuff we just talked about. So we don't really need to get into them much as characters because I think we're pretty much, that's really all I have to say, at least for now.
I think the only until we get to the Dragonpike house,
yes,
where he meets Altena. But as units, whew. Well, it's a pretty wide gulf.
Yeah. So do you why don't you take you want to take Ada or you want to take Dean? I don't care.
I'll talk about Dean because Dean is definitely a lot more. There's a lot more to talk about with Dean.
Can I talk about Ada first, and then you can do Dean?
Yes, after? Actually, go first. Go first, yes, so we can.
Sure. So Ada accomplishes something that I heretofore thought impossible, and that is being a Wyvern Knight or Draco Knight or whatever, and being mid. I didn't think it could happen, and I mean she's still pretty good just by merit of being a flying unit. Can be used to like rescue drop people. Has a lot of utility in that way. But man, her stats are just fucking terrible. She joins with like a killer lance, I think. And that's it really. She doesn't even have like regular weapons that she can use if you want to like save weapon or save uses on your good weapons.
Yeah, she gets weighed down very heavily by the killer lance.
That too. Yeah, she has really bad attack speed. So she's really hard to use. I actually, spoiler alert, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I tried to use her, and I got a few levels in on her. She was doing all right, and then in chapter 15 she died, and I didn't reset. So, Nothing of value was lost.
What even killed her? Was it one of the warriors? Was it the warrior boss or something?
No, I left her because you have to spend like a shitload of time on that map to get Shannon to show up, or Shannon.
Oh yeah.
And I think I accidentally left her in range of an archer or something.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
I mean, I think Dean could probably live an archer hit, but she definitely couldn't.
In my plays of the maps, to refresh my memory of experiencing them, Dean got crit by a thunder mage and took like 36 damage and survived or something. So
yes, that's the Dean experience, but we'll get into that.
He's called Tahra for a reason.
Yes, So Ida.
Ida.
She's mid, and she's. Would you go as far as to say that she's maybe the worst Draco Knight in the series?
Oh, that's hard. She might be.
Because they're usually like, if you had to like take every character from every class and like just average out their usefulness, I would say that Wyvern Knights on average are like the best units in their respective games for the most part.
For the most part, yeah, probably.
Like,
I guess the only two, Altena feels like cheating to say, because she's got garbage availability.
I think she's still probably better. Her.
You can if you really want to, you can save one. You can give Ada like the Balder Scroll and give her like one ring or two, and have her fight the mages, which she can one round with an Iron Lance at like base or near to base, I think. And like she can level up on that map and gain a few stats, and then sort of escape. Especially if you bring her to 14x as well and have her kill all the Pegasus Knights, who are like the weakest enemies in the series. 14x pegs have like 19 HP, 0 AS, and like 3 defense.
They're terrible.
So they're like unbelievably chump. But if you do not immediately invest in Ada, she's useless. She's unusable.
She doesn't. So you just mentioned the 14x pegs, and I think you're right. They're incredibly weak. Pretty much everyone run rounded them. You know who didn't double them? Ada.
Ada with a heavier lance cannot. Yeah, that's why you need to level her in 14.
I think even I'm pretty sure I gave her an Iron Lance and she still couldn't do it.
That's rough.
She's just so bad. She's terrible.
Mine gained like 2 or 3 points of speed in her join map and was just barely able to. So yeah, you need to immediately invest in her to make her even function against bad enemies. She cannot be really used against strong enemies ever. Especially given the fate of mounted units later in this game, but that's a conversation. That's a conversation for later.
And yeah, but I mean, like we said, she has good utility as a rescue bot. Being able to go to side objectives really easily is nice.
And since you only had Karen up until this point, having another flyer is really good. Like just having more flyers, going from one to more than one flyer is just a great boon, no matter what.
Exactly.
I never actually finished my thought. The other Wyvern I was thinking of that could potentially be worse than Ada is Zeiss.
Yeah, okay. I think that they're probably comparable. Zeiss is still alright. I've never really tried to use Zeiss.
The thing is that Zeiss is completely terrible, except his strength is insane. He joins with cap strength, basically.
Yeah.
On hard mode, I mean. On normal mode, I think Zeiss is useless. I think normal mode Zeiss is probably worse than Ada, but hard mode Zeiss is like pretty similar.
That seems fair.
Ada has more availability, and I think that she's more relevant in her game because there are fewer flyers, and she's got less competition. Mm-hmm. Even though her competition is her competition is worse than Zeiss. Or her competition is worse than Zeiss's because Zeiss is competing with Shanna and Milady. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but Ada is got it rough.
She's very mid.
Yeah,
really,
there's just not much to do with her in any sense. However,
yes. So why don't you go ahead and take it away on Mr. Dean over here?
So Dean, pre-promote Wyvern Rider, Wyvern Lord, Draco Knight, however your flavor is. He has incredible bases. He has 3 pursuit critical coefficient. So if you give him a killer weapon, he has guaranteed crits at base. He has, I think, 2 move stars. And he has supports with, I think, both Linoan and with Ada. So multiple units to support him is nice. And he has A lances and just great stats all around. Very bulky, very strong, very fast. And best thing of all, he gets arguably the best perf in the game. in terms of pure stats and function as a weapon, discounting the other like factors around it that will lead it to be technically worse than some other perfs, it could be argued to be better than Graph Caliber, which is its direct competition. I think Graph Caliber is better, but if we were just in a vacuum comparing the two weapons, I think the Dragon Pike, Dean's perf, is just, it's a brave weapon with incredibly high might, good crit, great hit. You can use Dean to capture enemies with the Dragon Pike that are nigh untouchable with strong like ranged staves or ranged magic, or like push into a ballista line that only he's going to survive in and just tear everything to pieces. Like, he is just unreal. He can, even when he's capturing something, he can usually survive because he's just got such good stats. And you give him scrolls and you just snowballs, because even though his growths are bad for being a pre-promote wyvern, you can just ignore that. Make him OP. And it doesn't even matter that there is dismounting, because I'm pretty sure he has like a B or C rank in swords, so he can still use a lot of the best swords in the game. You can use a rapier, you can use a killing edge. He's crazy. Dean is so busted. I love it.
You said it better than I possibly could have. A few corrections. First of all, he has A swords at base.
He does have A swords. I didn't want to say it. I'm like, I think he has A swords, but I'm gonna lowball and say B or C instead. Oh my god. Yeah, he can use the Master Sword. He's crazy.
You mentioned that because of scrolls, it doesn't even matter that he has low growth rates. Which I agree with. I think that you're correct. However, he doesn't have bad growth rates. He has actually quite good growth rates.
Of course. He really is hard.
His worst is magic, but then past that, his worst growth rate is speed, which is 30%, which isn't even that bad by this game's standards.
God, yeah, those are pretty good. Everything
else is like 75, 55, 50, 40, 40, 40. It's quite good. It's quite good. 2 movement stars, like you said. I think his, like, obviously all of these things are incredible. I think that the highlight here for sure is his bulk. I think that he's just so strong. It makes it really hard to kill him, and that makes him more liable to stick around. Makes it easier for him to do things. He does take a good chunk from magic damage because he has 2 magic and a 5% magic growth. So don't leave him in range of like a wind user or something. He has no skills either, which is kind of a downside. But you can always give him like a manual or something. I think that calling him Har, like the Har of FE5, is pretty accurate. I still think Har is better just because Har is like
of course,
top 5 units in all of Fire Emblem. But Dean is quite phenomenal. And it's just so funny that these two characters join at the same time and are so, like, one is better than the other one.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously in the story it's a given that Dean is going to be way stronger than Ada, but ouch.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so we'll talk about the Dragon Pike in a minute, because it is, he doesn't join with it. He has to go to a house in this map, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So we got those guys out of the way. Chapter 14 is a defense map, basically. It is you have to, if you ever played, there's a map in FE6 that is based on this one, right? It's like chapter, I want to say it's like chapter 19 Sakai or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think it's 20 Sakai. It's one of the later maps in the.
Yeah. You are inside a big walled city, and the Empire is closing in on all sides. And you need to guard the throne or the center town for, I believe, 10 turns is what it is.
10 turns. Yep.
Now
at the end of the 10th, you start the end of the map cutscene.
Yes. So the thing about defense maps, and this is something that I've briefly touched on before, is this the first? No, chapter 9 and 13 were both defense maps.
They are technically escape maps with
yes.
defend points.
Right.
The escape point has to be defended, so it is technically a defense map in terms of like loss conditions, but it is not a pure defend map. So technically, this is the first pure defend, survive for X turns map in the entire series.
That's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
These are widely regarded. I think people, a lot of people dislike defense maps for various reasons, especially ones from games like FE7 or FE8. are considered some of the worst just because like they're really boring. You know, you kind of just huddle up. You either wipe out all the enemies really easily and then just hit end turn. You either kill the boss. You know, sometimes that's a clear condition, or you just stay in one place and it's incredibly easy. You kind of just huddle up and there's no real reason to go out of your comfort zone. This is one of the rare exceptions, I think. This is genuinely one of the best defend maps in the entire series. I think for various reasons, and you can chime in if you hear me not mention anything. But I think for me, probably the biggest reason is there's two big ones. First of all, the enemies in this map are actually quite threatening. They're strong, and there are also ballista that are posted up outside of the city that can shoot you from inside or from outside, and they can hit you inside, and they can one-shot several of your frailer units. I like to bring I like to bring Lara to this map. I like to bring Tina because it's a good opportunity for her to get experience.
Yeah.
But if you put them in the wrong space, they're dead.
You have to reset.
You have to reset. Or if you're using save states, but I don't use save states for this. I would absolutely be using save states if I was playing casually. But I think, hitting reset is also a big thing. And and then some of the bosses are really tricky. There's a boss that comes at you with, I believe, a master lance.
Yeah, the first one is a master lance.
Yeah. So and was it some kind of bow, I think, right?
He has a killer bow which can one shot Dean. If you just kind of park him there, he can just pull up with the bow and one shot Dean with a crit. So
the enemies are quite difficult, and they make it to your doorstep pretty quickly. And you can't exactly just plug up the choke points because the ballista are gonna hit you and they're gonna do a lot of damage. And there's like ranged enemies. There's mages, so if you have a low magic enemy or a low magic character, they'll just come up and start chipping you away with like wind or thunder magic. So keeping yourself cloistered up is just not really an option. But even if it was, the second thing that I think this map really does well is that it encourages you to like break out and to actually like go on the offensive a little bit.
Yeah. You effectively, there's a sort of push and pull with the map because you're forced to initially rush out to the ballistas to deal with them so you can move more freely within the city. But then the enemies start piling in on you very quickly, and then they sort of force you into this like bad spot as you try to retreat back within the walls after pushing out to the ballistas. And the reinforcements are relentless and very threatening, so it's very risky to push out to the ballistas.
Sure, yeah. I think rushing out to the ballistas is a very good strategy, but and like you said, eventually you're gonna have to come back in. You might not kill all the ballista in that time. You might miss, or you might not be able to reach all of them in time. So I think it's if you end up in a situation where you have the enemies at your doorstep and ballista still coming at you, I think that it's a really tricky situation to try to navigate.
A resourceful, biased player might grind Thunder rank on a character with magic to gain access to bolting, and snipe the ballistas with a bolting tome from inside the walls. Is an alternate strategy you can use if you are crazy enough to grind Olwen to a Thunder before this map, which in my test run for this, I did in fact do. It's just because Olwen did a whole bunch of combat in Chapter 13, so her weapon ranks shot up really faster than I expected.
Nice.
So
yeah, that sounds awesome.
But yeah, bolting for ballistas, very useful, and there's a lot of boltings to steal in the game. There's one in Chapter 13. There's one in this chapter actually. Not that it's relevant for this specific strategy, but there's a few earlier in the game as well. Meteor tomes are kind of unusable because nobody has good starting fire rank, and Elfire is the best fire tome for some reason. So it's nobody's really gonna be using Meteor because you're just gonna be using wind tomes anyways because they're just objectively superior to the other basic tome.
I wanted to talk quickly about how I dealt with the ballista, but before I do that, I was curious. So I went to go give I saw that Lenoan had E ranks in fire, wind, and thunder, and I was like, okay, I have a fire tome lying around. I'll give it to her, and she couldn't use it because fire is D rank. Can they just not use?
She has to promote. Yes, it is one of my legitimate biggest gripes with this game is how magic is handled.
That's actually so fucking weird.
Yes. Someone had I think there was some case of someone not having the ranks until, but I don't remember. I don't. It might not
I
even.
feel like Asvel can probably use Fire and Thunder tomes. He has E rank, but then gets D rank on promotion. I could be wrong.
I think he has D rank Thunder on at base or something. I don't remember. I have no idea. The ballistas.
Yeah, so the way I did it, and I was actually pretty happy with this, I killed two of them. I killed the two of them on the left. There's four in total. I killed two of them on the left, and then on the right, I actually put those two to sleep with Safi. And then they're asleep for the whole rest of the map because they don't wake up in this game. It's one of the rare times that strategy actually came in handy for me. Or that fact of the game status doesn't wear off actually came in handy for me instead of just the enemy.
Oh yeah, I usually sleep the Iron Ballista by the second boss.
That's a good plan actually.
My usual strategy is to just rush like two bulky units out the left and right, and then rush the ballistas as fast as possible. I usually send a hero on the left and the right, usually Mako on the left and Orson on the right, and then I send maybe Dagdar out on the left or something. Asvel on the left is also usually what I do, and then I send I usually send the flyers over to the right as well, and have one of them go down to the Nosferatu house. And then after I clean up the ballistas, I kind of pull back within the walls, and then turtle there, and then I try to have Asvel and my calves sort of rendezvous down in the bottom middle. Asvel takes out the boss with the Master Lance, and then sweep down to the left before the Draco the event on turn 8 happens. But we'll get there.
Yes. I actually real quick before we move on, I forgot to mention I gave the Paragon manual. I have a few skill manuals I haven't used. I like to give the Paragon manual to Tina so that she can start getting that magic up, so she can steal more things, and that skill up so she stops fucking missing.
When Tina snowballs, and you have if you have 5 hammering uses, and you snowball Tina up with Paragon and with the Ode Scroll and the Haim and Fjallar scrolls and stuff, she can get crazy. You can go really ham each step. It's really fun.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I think I've pretty much gotten her to where I wanted. She has close to 20 magic. She has she doesn't have very high skill, but she has enough where she won't miss anymore, basically. So yeah, I think I'm mostly good with Tina. She's pretty dodgy now instead of getting killed by everything. Tina's a lot of fun to use. I've already talked about her in a past episode, but she's has so many cool, unique aspects to her that I think she's legitimately gameplay wise maybe my favorite character in the game.
Perfs are based.
Perfs are incredibly based. So while as we're in this town, getting bombarded by Ballista and by the Armor Knights and everything like that, there is first of all there's a guided map attached to this chapter. Chapter 14X, and in order to get it, you need to visit, I believe it's at least 3 houses.
3 of the generic houses, yeah.
Yes, there's red roofed houses all over the town, and you need to visit 3 of them. You can visit more, and that makes the following map harder. Actually, it gives you more of a reward, but also it's not worth it.
I mean, if you don't manage your money well and you need those stamina drinks, that is kind of a draw. But you could also just not play the map and not spend the stamina.
Yeah, so I would say that this is definitely the most skippable Gaiden in the game. Most of the other Gaidens give you really good characters or really good items for whatever reason. You might want to go to one. But Chapter 14X, I think legitimately it gives you stamina drinks basically for every house that you get. Assuming that the minimum is 3, there will be a villager, and that villager will need to escape the map. It's an escape map. We'll talk about this later. But for every villager that escapes, you get a stamina drink. And the stamina drinks can be really useful. But if you manage your stamina, if you manage fatigue well, and you have a few stamina drinks lying around, you really don't need to do this map.
The list of characters that are absolute essential must-haves for stamina drinks the list is pretty short, and you can keep a few around for worst-case scenarios. So it's really not that important. Plus, exactly. the only other real draw of the map is rewarp. And that rewarp is only really useful for niche scenarios. So.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Chapter 14X isn't until later. But the point is that if you want to get the Gaiden map, which in my opinion, maybe skip it if you feel like it. You need to collect, or you need to go and visit 3 of the red roofed houses. One of the red roofed houses has a recruitable character for us. If you bring Nana to that house and have her visit it, you will recruit Homer. He actually has a conversation on turn 2, which I didn't realize because I recruited him on turn 1.
Yep, if you don't recruit him, he talks to Shanam.
Yes, so this is our first introduction. I'll talk about the conversation first, because this is our first introduction to Shanam. In chapter 13, actually, Glade mentioned that Shannon was in the city, but was refusing to help, and that was kind of our hint that, like, okay, well, maybe there's something up, maybe there's, this guy is not on the level. He actually gets referenced, I think there's an NPC in chapter 8 of FE4 that talks about guy running around impersonating Prince Shannon.
The build up is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, so if you don't recruit Homer by turn 2, he has a conversation with this guy who looks kind of like Shannon, but is clearly not, and his name is Shanam. I don't know how to pronounce it, but
there will never be an image as classic or as vaunted as Homeros' 3rd annual shindig.
I don't know that I'm familiar with that. You're gonna have to send it to me.
Oh no, it's an old meme. This is like a vintage, like 2015, 2016 meme from before my time. It's just like an image for like Homer throwing like a fire festival style like event, like an ugly like garish like flyer poster thing called Homeros' 3rd annual shindig. It's pretty funny.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send it to me, or I'll look it up later because that sounds funny.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I have it around. I don't know if it's been posted. I don't know if it's been posted anywhere recently, so I'll have to dig through my folders.
Okay, so I just read it. Homer talks to Shanam and basically says, like, hey, I know you're not Prince Shannon. These guys. This is the first time that these guys are meeting, or at least like the first time that Homer is confronting him on the truth. And Shannon is like trying to run away. Homer says, like, I can't blame you. If you're not really the prince, then like why would you stay? So I'll see you later. I'm gonna stick around and get laid tonight, and then I'll probably head out in the morning. So this is your first of all, your first indication that Homer exists, but then also your first indication that Shannon exists, other than just like hearing about him. And they're both really cool. I like them a lot. And then Shannon leaves. But if you visit this house with Nana, you recruit Homer. And basically Homer tries to hit on her, if I'm not mistaken. And then Nana goes full, like, La Rochelle from Sacred Stones and is like, oh, no, you are not. You piece of shit, you're coming with me, and I'm going to, like, make you into a real upstanding member of society. And he joins. I don't know why he's suddenly willing to risk life or limb for you. This isn't even...
I think it's just a Sita moment of, damn, this girl's hot and she's royal.
I mean, yeah, that might like, it's explicit with characters like Leif, right? He wants to get laid by Safi real bad.
Down atrocious.
He's incredibly down atrocious. But this guy, he thinks Nana's cute, but I don't know if he thinks she's that cute. But apparently, because he sticks around. But yeah, so Homer joins. Homer, I just said that Tina is probably my favorite character gameplay wise in this entire game, but Homer gives her a real run for her money.
Homer is such a fun guy.
So the main selling point for him, first of all, he's a bard, and bards, similarly to Lewin from FE4, he can use light magic. Although Lewin definitely specialized more in wind magic, Homer pretty much exclusively uses light magic. I think his ranks in the other ones are not. Actually, is it just light and thunder that he can use?
He has ranks. He has ranks for all of them at the start. Yeah.
Okay. So he mostly uses light. And the thing about light magic is that all light magic has a little bit of crit on it. I think his base light tome has like 10 or 15 crit. And the thing that synergizes really well with that is that Homer has a pursuit critical coefficient of 5, which is the highest possible in the game. I think the only other character that we've seen so far that has a 5 is Fergus, unless I'm mistaken. There might be another one, but yeah,
5 is very rare. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, he has a really high chance to crit on subsequent attacks. Doesn't do it every time, but it's very common. And he's just a lot of fun. He's just he's kind of like he has like a little bit of we have Asvel at home vibes going on. But he's still fun to use. Like he's not like the best character in the game or anything, but he can be all right as like discount Asvel. If you're doing like an Iron Man and Asvel dies, he's a pretty good replacement. That kind of thing.
And having access to Nosferatu, he gets B rank light automatically on promo, if I remember correctly. So he can access Nosferatu immediately after promo, which is a very strong tome. So if you aren't using Linoan for combat, doing like Wrath Linoan or something, then Homer is pretty great with Nosferatu.
Oh, I forgot, he also has Paragon.
Between his already naturally high growths and his 5 PCC and scrolls and Paragon, he comes with everything to quickly raise up a unit. Comes later in the and reasons to keep using him. So
yeah, and then as a character, it's just kind of fun.
Spoony Bard.
He is a spoony bard. You're absolutely right. He's got he's a womanizer. He's he kind of like goes around chasing skirts and all that. He wants to have fun. Yeah. He wants to have a good time. But apparently he has a sense of justice to a certain extent because he decides to fight with the Liberation Army. So, whatever it may be. You do need to keep Homer alive if you want to recruit the best character in the game. So we'll talk about that later. But just keep in mind.
Oh yeah.
If you don't,
that's Homer's the long con. You need this guy around
for sure. So yeah, make sure to keep him alive if you want to recruit that best character in the game. Only on B route though. On A route, this character doesn't join, so you can kill him off, I guess, if you want.
Yeah, or just bench
him.
But benching him is cringe.
Benching him is incredibly cringe. At least let him go down fighting. But yes, so that's Homer. A very fun unit to use. And yeah, I pretty much just played the rest of the map like normal. I had mostly I had like a lot of my mount. I brought a lot of mounted units. I had like Finn. I'm using Hicks this run. Hicks has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, Hicks is pretty usable actually.
Yeah, he's just like worse Brighton, but like it's still fine,
Yeah, axes are good. Being a Cavalier is good. Having high con is good.
Exactly, he's the trifecta. But yeah, he Hicks, Finn, Fergus. I think Glade was there. A couple others. I'm using a lot of promoted mounted units this run because it's Fire Emblem 5. That's just like the meta of the game basically. What I most of the fighting outside of the town got done by Asvel. I had Asvel pretty much solo everybody outside. I had Asvel clear a path down to the bottom left. And in the bottom left, there is a house. And this is what we talked about earlier. If Dean visits this house, he will get his perf weapon. And we'll talk about like what goes on in the house later. But for right now, just keep in mind that it's like surrounded by, first of all, there's a boss there that has like a master axe and a tornado.
Tome? Tornado, which is an anti-flyer tome that is very powerful. So it's one of the few things in the map that really seriously poses a threat to Dean. Right next to his perf.
Yes, and then
house.
Of course,
so
the other thing being there is the Iron Ballista, which has
a
really
stronger
long range.
ballista. But yeah, just double range I think is the only real change. I think it has the same might as a ballista actually, just more range.
Yeah. So it's impossible to you can't even like rig a movement star or like have Lara dance or anything like that because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be out of his movement range no matter what, or at least pretty far. Now there are a few strategies you can use to get Dean down there. Of course, the most reliable and the one that I've opted to go with in the past sometimes is just warp him, have him visit, and then rescue him. Simple as that. Done and dusted.
It is a very valid using warp and rescue for the Dragon Pike is a very valid use.
I think I think it's worth it in my opinion. But then the other strategy you can tell me what you did in a minute, Spike. But the other strategy and the one that I use this time is to just kill them with Asvel.
Yes. What I did this time is after I cleared the bottom middle with a mix of Dean, Finn, Glade, and Olwen, I had all of my calves sort of meet up at the bottom and just rush the bottom left in kind of a pile. Asville, Olwen, Finn, Glade all just kind of ran in. And I just had them all just dive bomb into the group. Go after the ballista, the bolting mage, and I got very lucky fighting the boss there too. I managed to capture him with Olwen because Dire Thunder still does tons of damage even when she's capturing due to his low magic. So I just basically just blitzed and skillfully did not get killed by the ballista or the tornado or the bolting or the other enemies.
Incredibly
all
based.
skill.
All skill, yes. Oh, just as an aside, speaking of all skill, I had to. First of all, I had to reset this map a couple times, but on like the third or fourth attempt, I won, and I guarantee you, like, I got incredibly lucky. like characters like missing like multiple 40% chance hits in a row. I think I even had to dodge like a 70% at some point. Like there were a lot of opportunities for me to have to reset this map, and I ended up lucking out. So all skill, 100% strategy. But yeah, so I'm looking through the conversations for the houses and stuff. So we'll talk about we'll talk about the Dean one in a minute. But I'm scrolling through Homer's house, and there's a few different options here for if you visit with other characters. I don't know what translation patch this uses or if it's accurate. I assume it's a deviation, but it's one I'm completely in favor of. If you visit Homer's house with a man, he says, a man, huh? I'm not quite in the mood for that today, but please do come see me another time.
Oh yeah! Buy Homer is the whole thing for a reason.
That's based. That's so fucking based.
Yeah, there's definitely some. There's the I remember that now. Yeah, the buy Homer is real.
The buy Homer. The buy Homer is real.
Oh, God. Oh no. Oh.
Okay, so yeah, do you wanna talk about what happens when Dean visits this house?
Yeah. So when Dean visits the house, he enters and he runs into Altena, the foster daughter of Trevant, King of Thracia. And when he comes in, he's like, Altena, what are you doing here? And she's like, Arion entrusted me with this. It's his personal weapon, the Dragon Pike. Dean is like, I don't need this. I knew that when I went along with Arion's plan to protect Lenoan, that I would get marked as a traitor. So I don't need his support anymore. And she's like, I know, but Arion himself is also very torn up about what happened, and he wants to be there in spirit with you, protecting Lenoan. And after a bit more back and forth, they snark with each other a bit. Dean is like, well, I would disobey since I'm not a soldier anymore, but I can't. I have to listen to you, Altena, so I'll take it. And she wishes him well, and he takes his new perf with Arion's blessing to protect Lenoan, which I think is part of what between his attitude about things in FE4 and this here, where he sort of resigns himself to his fate in a lot of ways, fighting under Trevant, fighting for a vision of a united Thracia that will never happen, basically, given what the Loptus cult is doing and the tyranny of the Emperor. It's effectively just a cavalcade of circumstances that Arion can't really do about. So what little good he can do for the he cares about matters a lot to him.
Yeah.
So I think this conversation is meant to sort of flesh out Altena a little more because she doesn't get a lot, and it gives Dean a little more development as a deserter and some of the burden he carries as a result of that, and some of his relationship with Arion as well, I guess. It's just interesting, I guess. It's not super deep. It's not super like long, and a lot of it is sort of just left up to implication, or is more just like statements of fact. But I think it's a conversation.
For sure. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually, I forgot about this until you mentioned it earlier. I'm sure I would have seen it because I looked through the script anyway. But I'm glad that I'm reading this because I think it's a really good conversation. I think,
It's great, yeah.
It characterizes, I mean, I think, like you said, it characterizes Altena a little bit for sure. But I think it also has some incredible conversation for Arion, and then especially Dean, I think is really good here. I think this fleshes him out way more than the conversation at the beginning of the chapter. Kind of gives gives a good understanding of his perspective and his values. I especially like the line that you mentioned, where he says, "Technically, I'm not a knight of Thracia anymore, so you can't order me to do this, but I'll do it anyway." Which I think that's just such a fun and snarky, character thing for a character to say. I like that a lot.
Yeah, he's very resolute. He's very firm in his choices, but he isn't immune to some of the more sad aspects of his choices. So,
for sure, I think it's
there are some things he can't let go of.
Yes. I think it clears up a little bit, at the beginning. I think it's easy to interpret that as, when they say, like, Arion is having Dean do this, it's easy to interpret that as, like, Dean's doing it because he's under orders. And I think that this conversation really helps to clear up, like, yes, he's being ordered to do it, but he could have said no, and he did not say no. He chose to do this. He felt like it was something that he wanted to do, and he's steadfast in his decision. And I think that's really, really cool. I like that a lot. And yeah, so after that you get the Dragon Pike, which, as we talked about, is his perf weapon. It is a brave weapon, has consecutive hits. It has some crit on it, I believe, really high might and skill and hit. It's just a really good weapon all around, and it makes him a really, really, really good unit. Not that he wasn't already, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, it gives Vantage as well. I forgot.
Oh fuck.
So it's a Vantage brave weapon as well, which is, it's fair. It's fair and balanced.
Extremely fair and extremely balanced.
It doesn't actually have crit, though. I was wrong. I think it's just that he had support from Ada at the time, so I was mistakenly thinking this gives him like 10 crit or something. No, he had the support.
Yes. Okay. And then he also just has like high skill as well, I think, right?
Yep, just high stats in general, so he gets more crit.
Okay. And then on turn, so there's a couple more events before the chapter. At this point, basically, the chapter is over. Like once you clear out some of the reinforcements come from like the left and right for a while. There's
yes,
like a lot of mages and stuff.
This is an interesting aspect of the map that I think is worth talking about. The mechanics of the reinforcements are abusable to a degree.
I didn't know this. Go on.
There is a limit to how many enemies can be on the map. There is a 50 enemy cap. Once the enemy cap is hit, they will stop spawning. Which means that I believe the green, the thing we're about, there are two final waves of reinforcements that are going to happen at the end of the map. We're at turn 8 now in terms of timeline. But if you clog the map with enough enemies by blocking the doorways and gaps in the walls with unequipped cavalry, you can cap the enemy count and prevent any more reinforcements from spawning and just stall the map with weaponless cavalry, because if you use weaponless infantry, they'll get captured. But cavs cannot get captured, even if they are weaponless.
Right.
So,
yeah, okay.
So you just like take Finn and Glade and a few others and just stick them as bodies in the way. And there's a legitimate tactic to beating the map by stalling out the reinforcements, which there are a lot of reinforcements. 10 reinforcements spawn every turn for the first few turns of the map. I think turn 1 to 6. Every turn, so that's a total of 60 extra enemies on top of the already decent size of the force that on the initial map. And every wave, I believe, has 2 axe armors, a bow armor, a lance armor with a great lance, who is very threatening. These guys do a ton of damage, and a thunder mage who can be annoying, but it's usually pretty easy. But these Great Lance guys have 30 attack and are pretty accurate because there's the boss has a lot of authority stars, so their hit rates are really high, and they can just overwhelm you very easily. So the stall strategy is a pretty safe way. I believe it's used in some LTCs, so that there could be more action economy given to events within the walls, and like getting the distant objectives. It's interesting.
Yeah,
it's a really cool. I just think it's a really neat thing to point out that the reinforcement cap can be exploited for a strategy.
Yeah, no, I actually had no idea about that. That's really interesting. Thanks for bringing it up, because that's a really I don't know. It sounds like a kind of a very stally kind of Parker unit strategy.
It's a super stally strategy. However, it means that you can say you're doing like an Iron Man or something, or you're doing a 0% growths where your characters are not equipped for fighting all those enemies. Plugging them up so that you do not have to interact with the map mechanics and can just sort of send your flyers around the big balls of enemies that don't want to move away from their objective, and then just go get the houses. Pretty nice.
Yeah, no, it seems like a completely valid strategy and a cool, new way to try out playing this map in the future if you feel like it. But yes, so my personal experience with this map is that like I eventually just like killed all the enemies. Took a lot of weapon uses, but eventually I got it down to like pretty much nothing. There's just a handful of enemies here and there. On turn 8, however, we get some reinforcements from the enemy gets some reinforcements from Thracia.
From the south.
Yes, from the south. They come in from the bottom of the map, and they are Thracian Draco Knights. Among them are Trevant and Arion. They have like a little conversation about like
political events and like the threat of the Empire, and Trevant's vision for Thracia that has been taken away by the power of the Loptus cult and its influence. Arion is just kind of like, Dad, maybe we don't need to do this. And Trevant's like, are you stupid? Of course we have to do this. We're going to get fucking stomped out by the Empire if we don't do this. He's like, yeah, okay, you got it. And then Arion asks Trevant to leave the capture of the city to him because he has a plan to try to protect Linoan and the Liberation Army. That we will see in short order.
Yes, and Trevant smells something fishy. He's like, you're up to something, but he also doesn't really care. He's like, as long as the city ends up mine by the end of the day, it does not matter to me how you go about doing this. So, good characterization for Trevant there. I think this whole thing is pretty good characterization for both of them. Arion especially. I complained a little bit about Arion in the in my FE4 episodes just because I feel like his character is a little scattershot in that game.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I agree.
But I think he's portrayed a lot more consistently here, which I think is cool. I think Trevant is just like he's seething and mauling so badly over the fact that House Freege kicked their ass and took back Leinster. So I think he's still salty about that, and I think it's fun to see them interact around stuff like that. Oh, hold on a moment. Oh, no, this is, I'm sorry, I mixed up the turn 8 conversation with the turn 10 conversation. So the reinforcements first show up on turn 8, and then there's like a very brief conversation.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Trevant shows up and he's like, all right, McCloy, go get him. And he's like, yes, sir.
Yes, and then they show up. They just all suicided off of Asvel for me.
Yeah, the only real thing with these guys is they are green units, but they are enemy units, and it is not immediately apparent to someone who does not know how this works that they will attack you like any other enemy. However, they all have an RNG % chance to move. I don't know the stats on it, but I just know that there is a random chance that they will move or not move.
That's interesting. They all moved for me, so I must have gotten really unlucky.
In some ways, it can be considered lucky that they all moved because it means they're all in range for you to attack them.
Yeah.
In my case, I think 2 of them stayed behind and 4 of them moved. Or however many, I think there's 7 actually, so 5 of them moved and 2 of them stayed. But they come flying up the middle, and they can be a sort of surprise if you're kind of scattered around and you don't have anyone in place to deal with them, considering it feels like the map is sort of over at that point. They can be sort of a shot in the arm, like, oh crap, I'm not out of the woods yet.
Yes. I would agree with that. And I think they're mostly pretty manageable. They all suicided off of Asvel for me, so I don't know if they're like actually strong just because Asvel is like my best combat unit. So I don't.
They're not super threatening. The boss has kind of high stats, and he has like a silver weapon, I think. But if he gets taken down in one round of combat with like most strong like carries, so
okay.
I don't think that these guys are mostly bad as like a surprise. Like if you don't have if someone weak gets caught out in the middle. And if you don't know that they're coming and you don't like reposition your team well, thinking that the map is over, and this happens again on the next turn, kind of.
Yes, these were the ones that almost got me. This is where my luck got pushed to an absolute extreme. Because Marita was in range of these guys and she had to dodge like 5 of them.
Oh yeah. I played the map and I had to go back to turn 1 because my Marita died to these guys. And then when I replayed the map, this is a very funny story. Marita and Homer were both over there, and I'm like, okay, I think Homer might be able to fight these guys at base. They have high damage, but they're pretty inaccurate. So if I give him a Pure Water, he can take like 1 hit or 2 and then dodge tank. The first one missed. The second one hit him and put him at 1 HP and poisoned him. And then the third one hit him and captured him at melee range. And then I had to run Marita over and dance her because she had like moved up to like the arena or something to do something. I don't remember why. Oh yeah, there's an arena on this map.
Yeah,
there is. It effectively is a free map for arena turn. I had Marita come over to rescue him, and she had just enough con from my like farming session. I was grinding a bunch of levels on her on the Eastern Reinforcements. Great map to level up Marita and any other weak characters that, like, Tina is a given because she's a staff unit, but there's so many enemies and a lot of axe armors in particular that pile up that Marita can have easy pickings with. So if you haven't had a good chance to level her up so far, this is your great chance to get her online with a bunch of levels. For sure. Because Marita is very bonkers. But I got enough con on her to capture the Jormungandr sorcerer. And just barely survived the turn with all of them attacking her. Even while capturing one of the guys, she survived.
Wow.
And Homer was at, remember, 1 HP and poisoned. And that was true after I rescued him. So I had to have him run to the other side of Marita, trade all of the items that got stolen from him back from the enemy that she captured, and then take a vulnerary. And if he had gotten hit again, he might have died because his Pure Water got removed when he was captured.
Oh, I didn't know that that's how that worked.
I didn't know because I don't think I had ever had a unit with Pure Water get captured before. But if they get removed from the map like that, they get their buffs removed. So there you go. Today I learned.
Absolutely. But
yes, that was my adventure, my winning clear of chapter 14.
So it sounds like we both had a pretty wild experience. This is my fault because I derailed before actually doing this, but we never said like what the reinforcements were. There's like a big wall of dark mages or sorcerers that come from the right side. Top tier cultists. They can get pretty far. And they hit like a truck. The top tier mages do a shit ton of damage in this game. We'll talk more about that in chapter 14X, but there's like one guy in that map that fucking destroys you. But but if you can survive, I think they come. What is it? Chapter or turn 9 or turn 10?
Turn 9. They're only on the map for 2 turns, so they aren't that present. Yes. But they can be a last second oh crap. Even worse, and since they're way more threatening than the wyverns, and they do magic damage, it's just like you can get spooked and die. And if you're someone who's playing without using save states, that's a nasty reset to experience, especially blind.
Yeah, 100%. We can, if you're interested, we can get more into this later. But I've mentioned that I genuinely think that this game should not be play blind. I heartily recommend people to play with a guide rather than playing blind.
Yeah, I think that there are some things in the game that are just like. It isn't that beneficial in terms of your experience to go through it blind. I think that's actually true in most FE games. I don't think it matters that much to play most of them blind.
I think this is definitely the game where it hurts the most to play blind, though.
Yeah, I think the ones where it's really bad, FE6 kind of sucks to play blind, especially on hard mode. As someone who has played FE6 hard mode blind, never. Never do it. Never, ever, ever do it.
How did you even do that? Did you get the game and then did you just like download a completed save?
Yeah, I downloaded a ROM to play because I was a dumb 14-year-old downloading the FE games on his GBA for iOS on his iPhone 4 in freshman year, and I was like, yo, hard mode? That's for me. I'm a hard mode gamer. I've played Fire Emblem Awakening. I know what I'm doing. I've got this shit. That game's easy peasy. I got destroyed. I got ruined by that game. FE6 hard mode was so hard to play. It was my first real FE game that wasn't Awakening.
That sounds like one hell of an experience.
It's why I have such like good feelings for that game, because beating maps in that game felt like legitimately such an accomplishment. I was like, I'm literally the best strategy player to ever live. How did I beat that? I'm God. Like it was an actual huge ego pump. To beat shit like Chapter 11A? Oh my God.
Jesus. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
You do not know the level of tramp I felt recruiting Klein and Tate successfully for the first time. But yeah,
that sounds like crack.
Oh God. But yeah, after the Welkin-Rosen sorcerers spawn, that's basically the end of the map. One turn passes with the remaining enemies, and then the end of chapter sequence plays, which we actually talked about earlier. Out of turn, Arion and Trevant have their conversation.
Yes.
And then Arion flies into the city, and the end of chapter sequence with him and Lenoan begin.
Yeah, so basically Arion talks Lenoan into surrendering. She thinks, like we can't do this, we don't want to surrender. But Arion basically convinces her that it's the right thing to do and that's going to be the most long-term successful plan that they have. And he personally swears to her that he will not let any of her subjects be hurt. I think once he brings up the Schwarz Rosen, that's what they are.
The Welkin-Rosen, I believe, are the name of the sorcerers.
Okay. I think that so once he mentions those, Lenoan's like, oh shit. Because apparently they're like the big, like they are like, it seems like they're really high ranking Lop tier mages.
Yep.
Like they're the head mages almost. Thracia is going to occupy the city and put the citizenry under their protection, which convinces Lowen that she will be able to leave successfully and join Leif without her citizens being put in danger.
Yeah, they're called both. I think they're called the Schwarz-Rosen in older translations. Okay. And Welkin-Rosen and Schwarz-Rosen mean basically the same thing. I think it just in different languages.
Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel has taught me one thing. Or no, what was the game with one of the characters? His name Schwarz.
That's Julia Schwarz from Sky.
Yes.
And then also Schwarzer from Cold Steel.
But yes, so that is chapter 14. It's a really fun defense map. I think it really capitalizes on things that make defense maps fun. Defense is my favorite objective in the series. It's just so rarely done well. I think that there's so many bad defense maps, but the ones that are well designed and really, put in those elements to make it, go above and beyond, I think are genuinely some of the best maps in the series. And this is one of them, for sure.
Yes, I think that this is better than the other dedicated defense map later. It has a lot more going on. You feel a lot more threatened. I don't think that there's anything about the chapter that's too particularly annoying, that, like, out of turn, like, they don't have too many gotchas.
They have a couple, not that many.
The Dragon Knights are a gotcha that isn't too threatening. The Sorcerers are a gotcha that is threatening and can make you reset on, like, the last turn, which is kind of stupid. But Chapter 20, which is the other defense map, which is not actually a defense map. It's a fake defense map. But it technically has a defense objective that you can fulfill. So it's more like a later game defense map. This one is much better as a defense map in just about every way. There's objectives to fulfill. The enemies are threatening. The bosses have good... There's a boss that you can capture with good items. He's guarding one of the best weapons in the game. There's a recruitable character. There's an arena. There's a shop with stamina drinks, which I don't think we mentioned yet. So you can buy them here as well if you don't go to Chapter 14X. And you can grind in the arena to get more money to buy more stamina drinks if you so choose. probably only afford 1 or 2 extra with arena funds. The ballista are a good threat. It makes you feel like you're under siege. Like the energy of the chapter as a band of like defiant warriors withstanding the siege of the greatest empire on the continent. It really makes you get into the energy of what Leif is going through, I think.
I agree. Yeah. But yeah, so that's chapter 14. I think we both feel very positively about it.
Yep.
And I think I personally, it's probably my favorite map in the game so far. So that's chapter 14. And with that out of the way, I think we're ready to move on to chapter 14X, which is called Yearning to Be Free?
Yeah.
Or yearning to breathe free.
Yearning to breathe free.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first thing I have in my notes, which I think sums up this map, we could just stop talking about 14X after I read this, but it says, stupid civilians escort mission. Captures it perfectly. So to get this map, remember you need to get 3 houses, Fire Emblem 3 houses. You need to go to www.amazon.com and order yourself a copy of Fire Emblem 3 houses for the Nintendo Switch. But also you have to visit 3 of the red roofed houses in chapter 14. Homer's house does count, so it's his and 2 others. And you will be greeted with a cutscene after chapter 14 where Lenoan says, I tried to get my people to just stay in the city, but some of them are not listening to me and just want to come with us. And Leif is like, we can't be responsible for them all the way, but we at least got to get them out of this valley because they're traveling through a valley at night. And yeah, I mean, that's the conceit of the map. It's a really long, narrow stretch from the bottom all the way up to the top. There's an escape point at the top, and you need to escort the villagers from the bottom to the top. They spawn one at a time. After I think the first one spawns like a couple turns in.
Like turn 2 or 3.
Yeah. And then as you get as many citizens as there are like houses that you visited last chapter. So I only did 3. I don't know how many you did, Spike. Did you even play this map?
I did. I did actually go back. I actually went back and played it. I skipped it initially, but you know what? I want to do this just to have a feel. I had, I think, 4 or 5 villagers.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact count.
And then when you get them to the top, they'll escape, and they'll give you an S drink. So that's the. I mean, theoretically, like, you can just let them die.
There is no. You don't need to get them all there, and you can like get a few, and then, just give up on the others if you only want a few S strings.
And the other aspect of this map that I have neglected to mention intentionally because it's just, it's better to save it to the end. It's a Fog of War map, which I love. Fog of War maps are my favorite. I love them so much. I think the best thing you can say about this map is something that we've already said about this map, which is that you can skip it and be okay. But otherwise, it's just a really forgettable map, Thankfully, unlike in some Fog of War maps, there really aren't very many enemies that are really going to trip you up. There aren't aspects of this that I feel like are going to significantly hurt you. There are same turn reinforcement Pegasus Knights that spawn like fucking everywhere, but they do negative damage. And at worst, maybe if you I think I had my Lara get captured at one point. I just gave her a slim sword, and she even Lara doesn't get killed by these guys if she only fights one. Like a level 1 untrained Lara. So.
Oh yeah. The thrust of the map is basically you slowly crawling up the middle of the map, protecting your trail of villagers as Pegasus Knights and sorcerers with rewarp, which is a very uncommon staff in the Fire Emblem series. Rather than targeting an ally adjacent to you and warping them to a given tile on the map, you warp yourself to a given tile on the map. So it's an interesting item with somewhat unorthodox uses.
Yes, it does use your turn. This is not FE15 warp or FE2 warp, where they can warp and then immediately move. You do use your turn. However, I did realize throughout the map there are. I mean, obviously there are some that rewarp to you. But there are also sorcerers that just spawn as same turn reinforcements, like in like the middle of the map. So sometimes they'll just spawn and they will be able to attack you because they didn't rewarp; they spawned.
It's a lot. It's a lot of tiles. Like there's a large number of spaces where the enemies can spawn from, so there's no way to know where they're going to be. I think the game tries to prioritize tiles near you, but it's pretty. I think it's pretty random.
I think you're right. And okay, so before we get too ahead of ourselves, actually, at the beginning of the chapter, the reason that there are Pegasus Knights here is actually because there's a character named Misha who shows up.
Oh yeah. I was just thinking of that. Right. Yeah.
Misha is a character who we're gonna meet later. We don't really know anything about her right now, other than that she's a Pegasus Knight commander, presumably from Salice. I think even the the Pegasi are labeled as being from Salice.
Yeah, they're allied with Salice, and they're Pegasus Knight mercenaries that she has hired out to the Loptus, and the leader of the sorcerers basically just tells her to leave and go back to Manster or to Leinster because he doesn't want her around. Presumably because he's sending all of her troops to their deaths.
I was gonna say something similar. I was assuming it was because he was sending them to go kill civilians, and Misha probably wouldn't have let that happen. Though Misha does try to kill you later anyway, so maybe not. I don't know.
She doesn't really have much of a choice because it's fight or starve in her case. But yeah, that's a whole 17A away or 18A.
No, 17A.
Yeah, you're right. 17.
It's 16 and 17 are the route split maps.
Are the route split maps? Yeah.
18 is Xavier.
Yeah, 14X that's pretty much it. There's really, one other thing. There's only really one other thing to go over. There is a small set of static enemies at the end of the road. There's a mini boss hero and a boss sorcerer with a Fenrir tome.
Yes, Fenrir is the long range. I think they might have changed it. Was Fenrir the long range tome in FE4 as well?
I believe Fenrir is the long range one in FE4. Yeah.
Okay. I thought they changed it, but I guess I'm wrong.
I think they change it. They change it in later games for no discernible reason, and then Eclipse becomes the long range dark magic.
Well, in FE4 there are only 3 dark tomes, and they are based on the 3 kids of Loki. They're Hel, Fenrir, and Jormungand. That's the naming scheme. In this game, I think they introduced a few more, but it's still basically the same. This particular sorcerer, the hero is tricky too. Actually, I wanted to capture him for his stuff, but then I realized that I brought kind of like not very good units for this map, so I wasn't able to like reliably capture him. I thought he was just gonna kill me.
I just brought Dean to do it.
I didn't bring Dean. I don't think I just had.
I brought all the flyers actually. I brought mostly flyers and archer. In my run, I brought Ronan and Selfina. I brought Karen, Ada, and Dean actually. Because my Ada was just usable enough for her to be worth bringing. I
brought Ada as well. I brought some enemies to. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
I just brought like people to deal with the flyers and people to deal with the sorcerers, like Ronan. Well-known, powerful unit Ronan.
Yeah, Ronan's pretty fun to use.
That was the extent of my strategy. I brought Lara and I brought Pern also to steal the reworks.
But yeah, so the hero is a little scary. You could probably have Dean do it. I just had Asvel kill him. Like, killing him is not a problem. The hard part is capturing him. I didn't bother.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't capture him either, but I probably should have because he has a killer axe, right?
Yeah, he has some good stuff.
Killer axes are super rare for no discernible reason. The killer weapon distribution in this game is really whack. You can get a ton of killing edges, and you can get like several killing bows without much trouble. Mm-hmm. But lances and axes, ghost town. There's like no way to get them.
But he's not really too much of a problem if you just want to kill him. The real pain in the ass is that fucking that sorcerer
guy.
He has Fenrir, and it
does a ton of damage.
His attack has got to be. I think he has some stat variation. He has like 30 to 35 roughly attack. He has so much magic. Fenrir is 20 might for some reason. Don't ask me why. He just does a shit ton of damage, and there's no reliable way to approach him without getting one shot. Even if you don't get one shot, you're probably at low enough health where like even the shitty Pegasus Knights can pick you off. which is kind of pathetic. So what I ended up doing is I've tried a few times. I just kept failing every time. I think I tried like 2 or 3 times, and then on the third or fourth attempt, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna bring Asvel." And then as soon as I brought Asvel, I was fine, because Asvel is based. I just parked him on a forest in range and just had him tank the Fenrirs.
I don't remember. I think I just moved all of my characters in the vertical direction, and I think Dean killed him first, and then fought the hero.
Okay, yeah. Dean would probably make that doable because you probably just like danced him, I assume, right?
I think so. Yeah, I danced him. I debated using silence or sleep on him.
Oh, that's a good strat.
But his magic was too high. I think I brought Salem to do it, and his magic was too low. So.
Yeah, I also think just like this map is not worth burning a fucking sleep staff you son or a silent staff you son. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not really. That's why I didn't want to do it. That's about it. I don't think there's actually. It's an escape map, so obviously everyone has to make it up there where the villagers escape and give you the strings, and then that's the end of the chapter.
I did want to briefly mention that this is a good place to employ capture baiting because the reinforcements do kind of get overwhelming. Even though the reinforcements are so weak, especially the Pegasi, they are just so many of them. And if you brought like a character who doesn't, take physical damage well, or maybe who's super slow, like I had a character. I think if you Lenoan. I forgot to talk about Lenoan. Oops, sorry. We forgot to talk about Lenoan, but we'll talk about her in a minute.
Technically, she can join on chapter 15 as well, so yes. It's technically appropriate to talk about her now or then.
Yeah, you're right. But we'll talk about her here. But yeah, so there's so many enemies, and I think if you just want them off your back, a good strategy is to use capture baiting, which is something I mentioned way back, I think in the Manster arc, which is the strategy where if you... in this case, we can do it with NPCs, but we could also do it with our player characters like Lara or Lenoan. If an enemy can capture you, they will capture you. So if you unequip Lara or whatever, that enemy will choose to not attack anybody and instead go to capture Lara. All right, Lenoan. Lenoan's a cool character. We talked about her a lot last chapter in terms of like the writing and stuff for her. She gets a little bit more as the game goes on. She kind of becomes a pretty major character. Well, maybe not major character, but she has like a lot of cutscenes compared to most of the characters in this game.
Yeah, she has more presence in the story at this point compared to most.
Yeah, for sure. She's very earnest. She really wants to protect her people. She puts on a strong facade. Well, not facade. She is a genuinely very strong person, but she has this kind of like unfallibly or unflappable presence that I think that kind of shows in chapter 13 when Leif meets up with her for the first time. And they kind of have like a heart-to-heart. She really kind of like lets her guard down a little bit, and there's a little bit there. And she has a good relationship with Dean. She really cares about her people. She's all right. She's a little milquetoast, but not bad by any means.
She's just kind of a standard good mage.
Yeah.
With staff.jpg that can use light magic.
Exactly. In terms of gameplay, it's very much another like we have Asvel at home, except she can use staves. So more maybe, although she's probably better than Salem. So I guess she's just all right. I think she's just a pretty good unit.
Yeah, I think the only thing that really gives Salem a leg up is being able to promote sooner than her. He can access A staves before her due to having a regular promotion.
Yes, she does have a story-based promotion, right?
She has to do a map objective in chapter 21. Almost the end of the game.
Yeah.
To promote.
I thought
very rough.
I'm probably thinking of somebody else, but wasn't there a character who they have a story-based promotion, but like you can promote them normally, and it's just like if they aren't already promoted, then it promotes them there? Or am I making that up?
I do think you're talking about something that exists, but I forget what the context is. It rings a bell, but I can't quite place a name or game to it. If there was like a list, if I can find like a list of story promotions later, I might be able to figure it out. But she has C staves at base, so actually she's actually pretty great. And she gets adept from promoting to sage, obviously, so she becomes a pretty strong offensive unit when she promotes.
Sure. That really good strategy that a lot of characters that have access to light magic can do, which is you mentioned it earlier, Wrath Nosferatu.
A strategy accessible much earlier with Nana and the Earth Sword because her sword casts Nosferatu at range. Lunoan also has 5 critical coefficient.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I've never used Lunoan, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't used her for combat. I've used her as a staff unit sometimes, but I've never really relied on her offense as much. She's very. If you get her going, she's pretty strong and she's good staves, so she'll just kind of be useful in general. And she comes on a map designed to grind staff rank because she comes with an ensorcel staff, the magic up staff, and she comes with a torch for torching. So you can just kind of farm staff rank on her and get her up to beat staves or whatever pretty fast.
Yeah, so she's definitely a pretty solid unit. And yeah, so I think that she, just above average all around, I would say, in terms of writing, in terms of gameplay. She's just a solid 8 out of 10 across the board. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Chapter 14X, unless you had anything else in mind.
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. So once you end the map, all the characters escape and everything. There's a little cutscene where they're trying to decide what to do next. They talk more about this next chapter, but Dorius basically suggests that they go along the coast to get to Leinster. So that kind of seems to be where they're going next. And then we cut to a scene of August, walking around talking to people, and then he is interrupted by Lewin.
Lewin jump scare.
Lewin jump scare, exactly. This is our first time seeing Lewin this game, and I love him. It's absolutely a pleasure to see him. He talks to August a little bit. First of all, I don't know if they ever explicitly say it, but this is the point I think where you're supposed to make the connection that earlier in the game, Lewin mentions that he has, August mentions that he has a benefactor. To use his word, and I think this is the point where you're supposed to realize that it's Lewin,
which explains everything. Basically, It explains why he knows so much about what's going on, why he's so knowledgeable and so insistent on Leif doing all the things he does, why he seems to have ulterior motives of some such. It's because Lewin has him doing stuff on his behalf.
It's a cool reveal, yeah. The only complaint, and this is a very minor thing, I don't really care that much. The only complaint that I could level at this is that it's a little bit, I guess not predictable, because I don't know if people would have seen this coming, but I think it's very much, because Lewin was kind of the puppet master, pulling the strings behind the scenes in FE4. So I think having him be the puppet master here too is just a little bit kind of been there, done that. I think it would have been cool if it was someone else. But I think Lewin definitely is cool as well. I think Lewin's a great character. Love to see him. This is also where in Chapter 6 of FE4, Lewin goes to Leinster briefly and then comes back. This is actually what he was doing. He was having this conversation with August, which is interesting. It kind of ties in there. And yeah, so they kind of just briefly talk about, August is kind of down on himself a little bit here. He's I wasn't able to protect Tahra. We weren't able to succeed. And Lewin was listen, we both know that Tahra was a lost cause. It wasn't going to happen. They were doomed. So you did a great job. He gives him a big thumbs up. And then takes off. Do you remember where Orgehill is? What's Orgehill?
It's near Augustria. It's also near the Bragi town. Where Claude is, and he gets the staff, the Valkyrie staff or whatever.
What was he?
It's never explained why Lewin is going there. But it could have something to do with the spirit of Claude, which is alluded to by Sleuth. It could have something to do with Avel.
Yeah, possibly.
Since Bridget was a member of the Orgehill Pirates.
Yes.
It could be for something else related to the Valkyrie staff or something. It's not super. It's mostly just speculation. But those are the two things that I've thought of.
I also think it's interesting because he goes to Orgehill, right? And so I've talked a lot about Lewin in previous episodes, especially in FE4, obviously. And I don't know if I ever made it explicit in the episodes about that game. But as I went through the game, again, really paying attention to the story, really deep diving into all these characters, I came to the realization that Lewin is definitely my favorite character in that game.
Lewin is so fucking cool. Lewin is so good.
Fucking awesome. And I think one of my favorite aspects of his characters is just this idea that like he is a terminally static character. He wants so desperately, like as he kind of progresses through Gen 1, to make this change in his life and to like be there for the people who need him, to own up to his responsibilities. And I think he is there's like a certain element of tragedy to his character in Gen 2, where like obviously he's helping the world, he's doing a lot of great things, but when it comes to like the people in his life, he is continuing to abandon them. And I think that is like that the constant push and pull between like his responsibility to his loved ones versus his responsibility to the world is really plays a big dynamic in his character. And then there's also the element of like, Forseti is in there, and like what extent is Forseti controlling his actions versus how much of Lewin is still in there, There's a lot of stuff in there to dissect. I do a whole lot of talking about him in the FE4 episodes. I think especially the Endgame one, the second to last genealogy episode. I talk a lot about him, but the reason I bring all that up is because I think that this adds another layer to that. They continue to add more onto his character in this game. I brought it up a little bit in Chapter 4X. There's some stuff with Ced that I think is meant to be a parallel to what Lewin's been doing. But I think here they do it. They continue to add more layers because Lewin is in Orgahil, which, if you remember, Orgahil is right next to Solis, basically. He's a stone's throw away from his children. I don't even know if Aaron is... I think Aaron is dead by this point.
Yeah, she dies of illness at that point.
Because this is happening... the other cool thing about this is that this is happening concurrently with the beginning of Gen 2 of genealogy. Like, Selef's adventure has started at this point. And he's on his way. So Lewin, I think the fact that Lewin was right there, he could have jumped in, and he could have, maybe does he know that his family isn't there? I don't know. Probably not, but maybe, I guess. He could have seen, there's got to be people there who still matter to him, but he doesn't go, or at least maybe he does. I don't know, but he would. It's not like Ced or Fee would know because they're gone by that point. I don't know. It's interesting. I think Lewin is. I think as I progress and see more of these characters and get more appreciation for them, this might change. But currently, just having gone through FE4 and then like half of this game, Lewin is probably currently my favorite character in the series. I just think he's so interesting.
Incredibly valid. Like if there's any like default, like I think the default like best character in the series to pick would probably be like setting aside bias.
Yes, of course. We're all gonna have biases. Like my second favorite character in the series is Sarah. She's not like super well. She's kind of well written, but she's not like super deep or.
You have to really comb through the dark depths of her supports to find her more nuanced stuff going on. And in my case, my favorite character is Leif.
Yes.
Shocking. My favorite game is FE5, and it has my favorite story in the series. My favorite character is the Lord of my favorite story. But yeah, Leif is my favorite thing about the story of this game, because all of the elements about the game come together by the end of the game for him in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, Leif is fantastic. He hasn't really done very much in a while. I feel like the last time he got like a really good scene was in like chapter like 8X or 9.
Yeah, around when Dagdor joins up and he bails out the Leinster Knights, the Scrub Squad. Mm-hmm. There's some good for him there, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I think absolutely. I mean, we're about to, no spoilers, but we're about to see like a huge development for Leif's character in the coming chapters. Like 18, 19, 20 especially. But, we have a little bit of time before we get there. But yeah, so that's, we had a lot to say about this 8-line conversation between Lewin and August. But, I mean, that's what Lewin does, I guess. He just enhances everything that he's in. Everything he touches turns to gold. Yeah, that's Chapter 14X. You have any final thoughts before we move on?
No, not at all.
All right. So last but not least for this episode, we have chapter 15, which is called Two Paths. So the opening narration for this chapter talks about how there's kind of like a little bit of a debate going on between the various factions in the army. Because at this point, I think that this in every Fire Emblem game, each army is kind of like made up of various groups and various people who have like their own ideas and motivations. This is really, I think, the best the series ever gets at like representing that. Because they talk about like what do the people want, like what are the various factions interested in. It talks about how the Magi and the Fianna Freeblades really want to go free Manster right now, because they don't really know where to go next, right? Like they just freed Tahra. This has been their goal for like the entire game up to this point.
They just need to figure something out.
Yes. So their choices are between Manster and Leinster. The Magi and the Fianna Freeblades would really like to go free Manster. And the Leinster Knights obviously really want to go free Leinster alongside the the mercenaries from Thracia. So like Ada and Dean, right? Yes. Or the sellswords of Tahra. That's what it was. So they want to go liberate Leinster. Eventually they decide to go to Leinster first. And that like I think they decide that liberating Leinster was more advantageous. And presumably, if they went to go free Leinster would just come and fuck them up anyway. So it's probably a better call for them to go to Leinster is what they ended up deciding. And then now it's just a matter of deciding which way to get to Leinster. There are two ways that they propose. Dorius and August both have different opinions. Dorius wants to go to through the coastline. And there's a specific name for the place that he wants to go.
Noderhain, I believe.
Noderhain, yes. He wants to go through the coastline through like basically the front door. He wants to go and he wants to knock on the front door and say, "Yoo-hoo, the Liberation Army's here." And August wants to go through the back door. August likes going in the back door, I guess. But he wants to go through the forest called. It has like a specific name. It's like Swedish or something, called the Mirage Forest as a nickname.
Yeah, the Mirage Forest is what I remember.
They have both of these plans, and what I really like about this is a route split, right? You're choosing which way to go, and that's going to determine the chapters that you play for the next few chapters. Now, route splits are a series staple. They appear in almost every game to a certain degree, and then obviously the two newest games, or the two newest original games, Fates and Three Houses, are centered around route splits. And in almost every game has them, and I think most games they're basically like completely arbitrary, right? Like I think of FE6, the game right after this one, and it's like the first route split is based on what house you visit in a certain chapter, and there's no connection between those two things, right?
I think the absolute extent of the straw man is that the dialogue of the house is more geared towards whatever place you go to, but that's not an active decision-making thing on your part. It has nothing to do with your choices.
Yes.
It's just that one villager tells you about, like, the mines, and the other one tells you about, like, the villages or something.
Yep.
And you go to the mining village first in one of them, and then you go to the big village first in the other one. And it's just, like, if that was broadcasted to the player and made an active thing, like if... Before Guinevere leaves, she's like, "Hey, so if you meet with people here, they may tell you where you want to go. So, depending on whose directions you get, you may end up going to different parts of the island or something." That would be a good way to broadcast that your choices will matter.
Absolutely. This route split, they really they lay out what are the pros and cons of each strategic decision, and you can have like various reasons for picking it, right? Like you could pick one route because it's legitimately what you feel to be the better strategic option. You could pick one route because you like one of the characters more. Like I like August more than Dorius, so I'd be more inclined to go with August's side. Every time that I've played through this game beforehand, though, the thing that I based it on is basically people saying that A route is better and that B route sucks and is annoying. A route being what Dorius wants, and then B route being what August wants.
I have mostly done Route A as well. I have done Route B twice. I'm going to do Route B in this run. I actually stopped at Chapter 15 on purpose because it's what I needed to get up to. B Route has some advantages going for it in terms of items that you get. It has a couple of unique characters. But overall, the maps in B Route are more. The first map of B Route is very, very annoying, especially blind. And the second map of B Route has a lot more ballistas than the equivalent map on A Route. So it's kind of just a given that you would want to play the map with less ballistas. And then the two maps on A Route are pretty straightforward and fairly harmless. And the character that you recruit in the second A Route map is incredibly based and is worth it, and she's worth it. But she's for another day.
So I have never actually done B Route before. I played through this game twice or maybe 3 times, and I've gone A Route every time. So this will be my first time doing B Route. I am actually going to at least an extent where I can. I am going to be doing every single map in the entire series, which means I'm going to be in terms of route splits. I'm going to be save stating right before I make a choice, and then I'm going to be doing one path, loading the save state, and then doing the other path, and then picking which one to continue from based on things like level ups or which characters I get, which what items I get, things like that.
I can't wait for you to get 5 move growths in the Miranda map.
Exactly.
And be forced to take B Route. That'll be the best day of my life.
I plan to continue from B Route because I very much want to use a certain character that you get on B Route.
Can't wait for you to tell him about him.
I'm very excited to get there as well. And we meet him this chapter. Technically, you could have met him in 14, but I didn't. We're getting ahead of ourselves though considerably. I mean, it's important to know this stuff going into this chapter because basically I'll give you a more thorough rundown of like what the pros and cons of each are. So basically, August argues, the forest is going to be significantly less guarded, and then but Dorius counters like, well, it's going to be less guarded, but also like it's a forest called the Mirage Forest. It's very easy to get lost in. It's very difficult to traverse. Besides, I want to go the front way because it's basically going to be more inspiring. He wants this to be something that people talk about. He doesn't want the Liberation Army to sneak in the back. He wants them to be like go in guns blazing, make a real show of it, and have people be talking about it, and it'll inspire more faith from the populace. August kind of says like, well, more people are going to die if we do it that way. Dorius says like, I am aware of this, but they will die honorable deaths in service of their cause. And then they kind of get into like, this hasn't been an ongoing thing about like August really hates the concept of knightly honor and thinks it's completely bullshit. Whereas Dorius is a very like traditional honorable knight. And they get into it a lot over that. And I think, this is just kind of an extension of that because August is like, well, what if they don't want to die for an honorable cause? What if they just would like to live? So it's, it's a lot of them going back and forth about that. So eventually they say, they put aside their differences and they say, well, ultimately it's not our decision. Leif, you get to pick. And that's how the map starts. Oh, and then there's some bandits. They're going to fuck up the villages. That's,
There's a scroll in one of the houses on the left. A lot of the houses in the middle have, I think one of them has a killer weapon. But for the most part, the scroll is the big loot on this map.
Yeah, that's actually the one that I lost. It's shitty though. It's one of the shitty scrolls.
Yeah, it's like skill, speed, luck, or something.
It's like 5% in like everything in like two or three stats. It's not very good. It was so funny because I forgot that it was there. And I had like a unit like literally right next to the house, and there was a bandit. And I was like, okay, he's gonna suicide off my guy, but instead he just goes for the house instead. I was like, oh fuck, I forgot that was there. So yeah, I lost the scroll, but it's fine. It wasn't a very good one. It's not like the Star Sphere shards where you need all of them to get the true ending or anything. It's just they're just nice to have. But yes, you get a skill ring, an armor slayer, and a killer lance from the houses in the middle. And then I think that if given the opportunity, they will destroy the church. Although I don't know for a
fact. They can destroy the church, and it means that you cannot use it as your route's pick option. You have to walk to one of the arrows instead, which is the standard way to do it.
Yeah, so there are three ways to clear this map. One of them is to have Leif reach the church in the middle, and then you will be given the choice between, Route A and Route B. And then there are two arrows on the left and right side of the map. And if you pick one of them, you go to A route. If you pick the other one, you go to B route. I don't remember which one is which off the top of my head, but they tell you.
Left is A and right is B, and there's like the A one is like on an open like sandy plain area, and the B one is like in a bunch of trees. So it's meant to sort of visually evoke which route you're going to as well.
That's good. That's good map design. I think that's pretty good. This is honestly like, other than 14, like we got like two pretty solid maps in a game where I don't really like the maps generally speaking. I think like 14 and 15 are like obviously 14 is incredible, but then like 15 is pretty head and shoulders above the rest of the game in my opinion as well.
15 is just a very like calmly like designed map. Like it's exactly what it wants to be and needs to be, and it's a good balance of story and gameplay, and it's not super high octane. It's sort of like a kickoff point chapter. I guess we haven't talked about the two characters that talk to each other at the start of the map, Sloof and Amalda.
Yes. So that's how the story starts with this map. In the church in the middle, it cuts to that. There are a bunch of characters talking to each other. One of them is a priest. He's kind of like an older, balding guy, and they have a little bit of a conversation. Amalda is very much she's a member of House Frege, I believe it is. Or not a member, but a knight of House Frege. But she's been kind of going against them and like rescuing children from the children hunts. She's trying to do the honorable thing, kind of like how they flag up Ishtar in FE4 to be doing stuff like this. But I feel like, they definitely... Ishtar is very inconsistently characterized in FE4, I feel like. But I think...
Oh, God. Tell me about it.
Oh, yeah. She's so... They try to say, like, oh, she's so misunderstood. She's like the Camus archetype, except outside of Endgame, like, everything she does is just really fucking evil. But, yeah, anyway. So they chat for a little bit. Amalda... My point with that was basically, I think Amalda is Ishtar done better. I think she's, pretty cool. We'll see more of her at a later time. And the priest calls over... Shroff, that's what they call him in this translation patch.
Oh yeah, I'm calling him his old name. Yeah, Shroff.
Shroff
shows up to talk to Amalda about a lot of stuff, actually.
Yeah, but it's a pretty in-depth. I gotta reread the conversation. Give me a second. Yes, so they have a nice little back and forth. Amalda wants to do more. She wants to go out of her way to protect more children. But Sloof is like, if you get caught, they'll just kill you, and then there will be no children being rescued. So I know it's hard, but you just got to do your best. It reminds me of Schindler's List a little bit, actually. He was doing his best to protect the Jews in the concentration camps, but he, I'm sure he wanted to do more, but there's only so much he could do without getting caught, and then there wouldn't have been anyone to help them at all. Same kind of vibe. That's a good movie. I need to rewatch that movie. You ever seen it?
I have not, actually. It's something I should see.
Yeah, it's based on a true story. It stars it's Liam Neeson, phenomenal actor. Obviously, it's just a really good story about a nice, basically a guy who gets put in charge of a German guy who gets put in charge of a concentration camp, and then like does his best to help the people who are sent there. But, obviously he's not able to save everybody, which is kind of a similar situation to what Amalda is going through right now. Highly recommend. That's my movie recommendation of the day is Schindler's List. Go watch it. Very sad, but good movie. They chat. So Amalda leaves after a little bit. I don't think they say anything more notable than that. And then Sloof and Bishop, the bishop that Amalda was talking to, I'm just going to call him Sloof. And then, yes, so they briefly talk, Sloof and this bishop, talk a little bit about how Sloof visited the Tower of Bragi. And when we saw that in FE4, Claude went there to get the some information about like Reptar and Langbolt. And I believe at that point it was Bragi himself talking to him. But here, apparently, Sleuth actually heard the voice of Father Claude, which is kind of cool. It's good to know that he's I guess he's not alive, but like kind of his spirit lives on through this method. It's good to know that he's in a place. I think if Claude had to pick anywhere to end up after he died, I think that would be a good place for him.
Yeah, and of course this is the spot where the infamous Light of Zwei
Forgot about that. Yes,
originates.
Please tell them about that. I don't know as much about it as you do, I think.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've had any sort of serious conversation about Light of Zwei arguments. But basically, there was an old translation about of this scene where Sleuth references something called the Light of Zwei that Leif and Seliph would like use, like a power that they would use or something, or like that they represented. And there were so many debates in the community about what the Light of Zwei is. And there is nothing.
Yeah.
There is no like there is not actually a Light of Zwei. It doesn't
It was a complete mistranslation, right? Well, not a complete mistranslation, because there is some stuff in here about light. We'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, I think it was just a weird translation that people were talking about, but it was just incorrect, right?
That actually, I am completely wrong, and I am speaking mistruths on the internet. The Light of Zwei is in fact real, and it is referenced in the Japanese text. There is a cipher card that mentions the Light of Zwei as well.
There's no possible fucking
There is a
way.
cipher card where Leif has the Light of Zwei. It turns out that what it means is the dyadic light in English, which is meant to symbolize the two holy bloods that Leif bears.
Balder and Nova, or Nyorun.
Nyorun, the light of two holy bloods is that is the light of two, since Zwei means two in German. I think I remember the fan theory for the time being that since Leif was the second hero of Yggdrasil behind Seliph, that was why he was the Light of Zwei. But it appears to be more in reference to his holy blood.
Mm-hmm. Well, because Seliph also has two holy bloods.
Yeah, he does.
So it ties into him as well. Ares only has one. And more recent translations kind of work Ares into here for some reason. That might actually be more of a Project Exile thing. I don't know if Little Manster does that. The actual quote is, when the three lights converge as one, darkness shall be banished from the living world. Now, the third light here, I believe, is supposed to reference Ares. Although you could also argue that because they both have two holy bloods, but between the two of them, they only have three, because both of them have Balder. So it might be referring to Balder Holy Blood, Nova Holy Blood, and Naga Holy Blood. So that could be it as well. Or Ares. I always thought it was Ares, even though Ares is like not an important character in FE4.
He's really. Kind of like he's important to like the themes of the story and like the succession of stuff that happened in Gen 1. Mm-hmm. But in terms of actual plot relevant actions, he's just a meathead. So
yeah, for sure. This FE4 was like allergic to making their trios of heroes into trios. Like Gen 1, it was supposed to be Quan, Eldegon, and Sigurd. Like they had that dynamic. That was their trio. But Quan and Eldegon never interacted with each other. And it's the same with Ares and Seliph and Leif. You know, they're kind of meant to be like this trio of Lightbringers. But Ares, first of all, is not important to the story, but then also like never does anything with Leif. He only talks to Seliph, so I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, it makes me wish that Ares showed up in FE5, but alas. Anyways, Sleuth finishes his conversation. He leaves.
Yes.
And he just goes off to... and Sleuth goes off to in the A route direction.
Yes.
And Amalda goes off in the B route direction.
She show up in B route? I didn't know. I don't care. I just, I'm that's interesting. She's like a boss?
Yeah, I used to like see her there. She's like on one of the maps.
Okay.
I think she's on the second B route map.
Yeah, so they both take off in different directions. Technically, Amalda and Sleuth are both exclusive to A route. through dynamics that we'll explain, at a later time. But Sloof is an A route exclusive character. Amalda is actually still here. We should mention because she
stays on the map with Ralph. Yeah.
Yes. So after Sloof leaves, we get a visit from a guy named Ralph, and Ralph is a mercenary. He says like, "Hey Bishop, there's some bandits coming to attack the village." Bishop is like, "We literally have nothing of value to them. Why would they be doing this?" It turns out the bandits just want their women. But Ralph is like, I'll fight them off for you. It's kind of, characterizes him pretty well. Like, they can't pay him. They're too dirt poor to pay this man, despite him being ostensibly a mercenary. But he's like, you know what? I'll fight for you because you were there for me in my time of need or whatever. So I'm gonna fight to defend you guys. So he and Amalda fight as green units on the map for a while near this church in the middle of the map.
Yep, they fend off the bandits coming from the north, the main force of enemies.
Yes. Now, Ralph is recruitable. Amalda is not. Not right now, at least. But Ralph, you can get this map if you talk to him with Leif. And yeah, I mean, the map is pretty straightforward. There are a few bandits on either side, but the vast majority of enemies from this map come from the top. There are 3 fortresses, like forts, on the top of the map. And every turn they spawn more and more bandit reinforcements. Some of them have swords, some of them have bows, some of them, like, there are a few warriors, stuff like that. I think it changes every few turns.
Yeah, they pour out of the forts one after another.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. They can be a little overwhelming. This map is definitely, it's not that hard, but like, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the number of enemies that are here because there's just a shitload of them. Especially towards the end, they start coming with like silver weapons. The upside is that you can end this map at literally any time because once you get Leif to the church, you visit it and then that's what ends the map. Or you could have him go to one of the arrows, I guess. But the church is just...
The church is easier. Better. You can fly him over with any flyer and just get to the church right away. This map was very annoying in my draft because I did not have a flyer, so I had to run all the way around the side. Anyways, you go through this map, you fight the bandits. The boss is pretty lame. He doesn't really do anything.
You can recruit.
After fending off the bandits, saving the houses, you move up to the middle of the map. Amalda leaves once you approach her, and then you recruit Ralph. And then
let's talk about Ralph first.
Oh yeah, Ralph. He's a guy.
He's a guy. He's kind of gets memed up a little bit as being like one of the more forgettable characters in the series. I think he's actually a pretty alright character, not like amazing or anything. 2
scenes. He literally is like, bandits are attacking. I'm gonna save you guys, and he's a cool charitable little guy who fights out of the goodness of his heart.
For sure. Only having 2 scenes is definitely a fair argument. I would argue that he has more personality in those 2 scenes than like a lot of members of other Fire Emblem game casts. Like Trude, I would definitely still cast my vote for Trude as the most forgettable.
Oh god, Trude is literally just like a sword man. He's a guy who holds a sword and swings a sword and has no other traits.
Mm-hmm. Ralph also looks like incredibly normal. At least Trude is like hideous.
Trude is like wacky looking. Trude is like an OC. But you recruit Ralph joins up. Leif is like, "Yo, what's good?" Leif from Leinster. And Ralph was like, "The Leif from Leinster? Let's go. Yo, you trying to pay me some money and I help you fight some guys?" And Leif's like, "Sure, man. Why you really want to join up?" And he's like, "Bro, the Empire sucks. I cannot stand another day of this." And he's like, "All right, join up." And then so
yes.
Ralph is very clearly motivated to join up, and he does. And as it turns out, Ralph is actually a pretty good unit.
Yeah, he's slaps, man. He's really good. You want to talk about him?
Yeah, there's not actually too much to say. Ralph is a pre-promote hero. He has, I think, A swords and C axes. Are his weapon ranks. Yes, A swords and C. Going on B axis, he comes with almost B weapon rank, actually.
Oh, okay.
But his bases are very good. 14 speed at base.
14 con.
Okay. So he can almost wield a steel axe with no penalty. And his stats overall are just very high and competent. If you're playing like 0% growths, incredible unit to rely on in the mid to late game because his stats at base are just so high. So you don't even need to like invest in his level ups to use him. If there's ever a map where you're like 2 units short of deployment, and you're like, and you want to deploy Max, and you're like, who can I toss in that'll do the job? Like, Ralph is the best generic unit ever.
Yes, he's like the best way I could describe him is he's like the best. He's like just below that top tier of like, you know, Finn and Asvel and like Dean and all those guys. He like all those big heavy hitter carries and like the top tier, and then like right below them is where I'd put like Ralph, maybe just like a little bit lower.
But yeah, Ralph is crazy.
He's
great
dope.
pickup to have.
Do you have anything else you want to say about Ralph?
No, I think we should talk about the next thing that happens on the map after you recruit Ralph, Amalda leaves, and then
turn 11.
After some time passes, turn 11, a familiar face will pop out from a fort at the top of the map.
The Prince Shannon of Isaac has made his appearance. I can't believe he's here.
And he starts running. He's got a lot of important work to do back at Isaac, protecting his people from the Empire. You know, he's a magnanimous man, and in his generosity, if Marita happens to pass by during his crucial excursion, he will make some time for his distant relative. Spoilers.
Yeah, I guess that's true, huh? No, but we find that out in like chapter 6, I think, right?
Yeah, we find out about the Mark of Ode or whatever, and that so some order of events lead us to learn about that. But Marita approaches Shannon and is like, "It's Prince Shannon!" Or no. She approaches him and she's like, she's like, "Who are you? Are you an enemy? Are you one of the Empire's soldiers?" And he's like, "Heh, you should put that sword away. I don't want to cut down clueless little girls like you." And he like does like an edgy pose. That's right. I remember now. It's been a while. You want to just read it line for line. You want to be Marita or Shannon? Yeah, let's read. I don't care who I am. I'll be Marita.
Okay, go for it.
All right, I've got the wiki. Hold! Who are you? Another one of the Empire's lapdogs?
How uncouth. If you wish to live, turn your blade aside. I didn't learn the technique of Astra just to waste it on cutting down clueless little girls like you.
Astra? But that's the secret art of the Isaacyan royal family. That would make you...
Correct. It is I, Prince Shannon of Isaac, but I've been forced to hide my identity. So do us both a favor and forget you ever saw me.
Prince Shannon, I would ask something of you.
Keep your voice down, would you? Let's avoid any surprises, shall we?
Please, you must teach me some of your swordplay. I beg of you. It doesn't have to be a prolonged lesson. Just knowing the secret of how to perform Astra would be enough. ... Please, Prince Shannon, I need to become stronger. No matter what, I must go stronger.
Well, I could take you through the motions, I suppose.
Would you? Oh, I'd be in your debt.
This has gone from bad to worse. Guess I'll just ramble off some vague nonsense about swordsmanship. Knowing the movements of the technique is important, of course, but more important is your spirit, your heart. When the swiftness of your body becomes one with the sharpness of your mind, only then are you capable of learning Astra.
My body and my mind?
Indeed. Now, to begin with, make a simple swing with your sword.
But how should I swing it exactly? Could you demonstrate? Just once?
No. That would defeat the whole point. Astra can only be mastered through your own attempts to understand it. If I were to demonstrate it, all you would learn is how to imitate me. Yeah, that sounded good.
So that's how it is, huh? Alright, I'll just try something. Hiya!
No, not like that. You're doing it completely wrong.
Hiya!
No, you're just flailing your sword around like you're blindfolded. It's about using your body and your mind together, remember? Your body is working, but your mind isn't in it. Lady, I am selling you a bill of goods here.
Focus my mind into my body. Focus my mind into my body. Hiya! And this is important to describe. The game enters a combat sequence where Marita activates the Astra skill, and Astra's at Shanam, who dodges all 5 attacks.
Yes.
And after this resolves, the conversation continues with, "What was that? I can't believe it."
No way.
No, that can't be it. It isn't really that easy, is it, Prince Shannon?
Huh? Well, no, of course not, my pupil. You couldn't call that a perfected Astra.
That's what I thought. I mean, that hardly took any time at all.
At any rate, I promised to show you the motions, and I've made good on my word. I'll be taking my leave now.
Thank you for everything, Prince Shannon. Focus my mind into my body. focus my body into my mind.
Man, what was up with that girl? And then the cutscene ends, and she has learned Astra.
This might be the single best comedy scene in the entire series.
It is definitely like one of the funniest moments in the entire series for me. Like
the fact that he peddles anime bullshit to someone and it works.
It's so fucking good. And I mean, there's like some more complicated stuff we could get. Like, I think it's pretty interesting that like she like it literally picks it up in 2 seconds. to me, that implies like, oh well, maybe it actually maybe it is all just anime bullshit. I don't know.
Maybe it actually is, and that the vaunted techniques of the house aren't actually that complicated, and that more people could learn it than they realize. Like, it raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she does have Ode Holy Blood, but like, you know, that doesn't. So does Holland, and he doesn't know it. So it's not like it's a guaranteed thing, right? But yeah, no. This is a really funny scene. I mean, honest, Shanam is, I would say, probably the funniest character in the series for me. It's
such a funny premise for a character. And it gives Marita another crazy skill to use. She gets Astra.
She's really... I don't know if I ever talked about Marita's perf in her join map, but it's a brave sword, basically, and it gives her, like... I think it gives her Luna or Nile. It gives her Nile, that's what it is.
It gives her Nihil, yes.
It's just fucking... It's just, like, the fact that it's a brave sword is just fucking crazy. But yeah, so after you, you know, capture as many enemies as you want, or as many as you can handle... you get to the church in the middle of the map with Leif, and he basically gives you the option to go to Route A or Route B, and you can make this choice. It's only a 2 map route split, so it's not as bad as it could be. It's not like 4 or 5 maps like some of the later games have route splits, but yeah. So whatever side you pick, you know, I recommend, you know, you kind of go for whatever you feel like, whatever sounds most interesting to you. A route is considered to be the easier and the less obnoxious of the 2 options. And
the B route has more rewards in terms of rare. It has a lot of rare weapons, stuff that can only be gotten on that route. A second Puji for Orson. The only way to get a second Puji in the game is on B route. There's a Luna scroll that is only on B route, whereas the Soul scroll is only on A route.
There are multiple options. I'm gonna give like an in-depth list of like the items you get like when I do those. Next episode is I'm going to be doing 4 maps. It's just going to be 16 and 17, but I'm going to be doing them for both routes. So
that'll be real fun. I hope you have fun with the warp tiles.
Oh man, I'm so well. Hey, it'll prepare me because I'm gonna have to do what is it, 24x or 25x?
Yeah, 24x is much different. 16B is a pretty tame map, aside from the warp tiles and the Berserk Staff guy. 24x is a much different beast. It's not a fun chapter. Mm-hmm. That's a problem for future you to deal with.
Okay, so that's it for chapter 15, and that's it for our chapters for the episode. All right, so once again, I would like to thank you for joining me today, Spike.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
It was really fun to tackle this with somebody else for once, and I intend to hopefully have more people on in the future, including you, if you ever decide you want to come back. But yeah, so this has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everyone in the audience as well. Bye-bye.
All right. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed having him on. He might come back. I don't know. Or I might have more people in the future. We'll see how that goes. But just me, just you and me now. Just like old times. Just the 2 of us. I was listening back to some older episodes, and I think the audio quality has improved a lot. I mean, obviously I have a better microphone. I'm like projecting my voice a lot more. I'm doing this like in my own apartment rather than like 10 p.m. in my parents' house. So I'm able to be a lot louder. But I was listening to some of those old episodes, and I think that there was like a kind of a charm to like kind of like the ASMR vibe I had going on. You know, I was talking very quiet. I was talking very close to the microphone. And I think that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. So maybe I'll bring it back. You know what? Maybe every Fog of War map that is darkness based, like Battle Before Dawn. Maybe I'll take a very ASMR approach. I don't know. We'll have to see. How what the future brings. Hopefully hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It definitely took a lot longer. Like geez, what are we at for? Oh my god, we're 3 hours for this shit. That's gonna be a pain to edit, but it is what it is, I guess. I enjoyed it a lot, so hopefully you guys did as well. I will be now talking about the usual stuff that we talk about at the end of these. So we'll do the map gauntlet and then news and the stuff that I've been doing. So in terms of our map gauntlet, best chapter that we played this episode, I don't think it's any surprise that it's going to be chapter 14. It's incredible. Best defense map in this was not the best. I have an opinion on what the best one is, but it is definitely one of the best for me. And in general, I think I don't know if it's my favorite map in the game, but it's a very, very solid contender. And I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, and chapter 14X is not good. It's just a bad map. 15 I think is actually pretty solid. It's just a nice little reprieve from the kind of climactic maps that we've been seeing for a while now. So I think that was nice, but it's just pretty good. It's not incredible. So I do think that chapter 14 is going to win for this episode. And then compared to chapter 3, I think it is actually going to be the first map to properly dethrone chapter 3. I know chapter 9 did for a while there, but I changed my mind. Chapter 3 came back, and it has been on top for the past couple episodes now. So it's nice to see. Chapter 3 is a great map. I love it a lot. But chapter 14, I think, really just blows it out of the water. It's just a really, really fun experience for me personally. Yeah, hopefully you guys agree. If not, I don't care. But that's all that I have to say about that. No, obviously I want to hear what your guys' opinions are. What do you think of chapter 14? Do you think it's fun? What is your favorite map in the game so far? Stuff like that. Oh wait, no, hold on. Was chapter 13? No, chapter 13 beat chapter 3. Right. Okay. Well, yeah, the fact that I didn't even remember that, it should be an indicator that, yeah, it beats chapter 13 as well. Chapter 13 is quite good. I like chapter 13 a lot. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Chapter 14 is still better, in my opinion, and I think that it's just a more well-rounded experience. So now chapter 14 is our reigning champ, and we'll see if anything beats that next episode. Chapter 16 and 17, A and B, probably not. I don't think there's anything in there that would pose a threat. I have one map in mind that I think is a contender to beat it, but after that, I don't think we're going to see anything. So chapter 14 could very well be the best map in Thracia. We'll have to see. All right, and then in terms of news, we have one thing that I saw. Lilina and Roy figures got announced. They're not coming until a year from now in September, October 2023. But they look really, really good, actually. And I might hop on at some point, especially since around that time I'll probably be playing FE7. Oh, whoops. I was still on the Discord call and I got disconnected. I gotta see what this is. There's something called Fire Emblem Castle Conversations. Oh yeah, so it's just there's like an interview with some voice actors. I believe it's obviously the Claude voice actor. Joe Zaija has really made a name for himself as being very recognizable. And Erica Mendez, who voices Bernadetta. I've heard that name before. I don't know who else she does, but yes. So and then that's it. So no real new news. Unfortunately, I mean the figures are cool. I like seeing new figures. And then in terms of what I've been doing, I'm gonna try to keep this short because we are already at over 3 hours. So this is gonna be fun to edit. But it was worth it. I've been playing a lot of games. I beat the Somnium Files 2. Worst in the first game. I liked it pretty well. It just wasn't that good. In my opinion, compared to the previous game. And then I've been playing more Trails. I hopped on the fourth Trails game. Trails to Zero, I think. I barely played that at all though, so I don't really have much to say about it. And yeah, so I've just been watching a lot of anime. I finished Rakugo Shinju. That was sorry, not the whole thing, just season one. That was pretty good. I watched. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I watched Kaguya's Love Is War. That was really good. Um, Anything else? A couple more here and there. Oh, I finished the Hajime no Ippo anime. That is fucking incredible. I love Hajime no Ippo. I'm gonna start reading the manga soon. There's probably a couple more, but that's really all that I'm interested in talking about. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is I have started watching Twin Peaks. Really good show. I know David Lynch has become like a really famous director. I don't know if he was at that time, but I honestly I'm a little bit uncultured when it comes to film. If I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really seen any of his films or any of his other TV shows. So I think this is gonna be the first experience with Lynch that I have. I think that he seems to be a pretty well loved director. So I think it's gonna be a good time. I'm about a few episodes into season two, but season one is only like 8 episodes, so it's not that it's I'm like 11 or 12 episodes in, and that's really it from me. The reason I wanted to get into Twin Peaks specifically is because my favorite cartoon ever, at least non-anime cartoon, is Gravity Falls, and Twin Peaks is a huge inspiration for Gravity Falls, and you can absolutely see that in like the tone, in some of the comedy, and just generally like the vibe. I think is really interesting to see the comparisons there. But yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this up here because if I haven't complained about it enough already, 3 whole hours of this shit is gonna be a pain in the ass to edit. But it is what it is. So anyway, the more I talk about it, the more of a problem it's gonna be. So I'll talk to you guys later, and have a good rest of your night. Bye bye.